This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
What's up, everybody? Remember back on December 11th. Doesn't that feel like an eternity ago, John Hicks? December 11th, the leader of Alberta's official opposition, Naheed Nenshi, sat in this studio and said, and what is the one thing that he said that caught the attention of everybody tuning in across the country?
If an election was held today, we would win.
That is exactly word for word what the leader of Alberta's NDP said on this show December 11th. And, of course, we received a ton of responses to that from Nenshi and Alberta NDP supporters who believe that to be true, from conservative supporters, from UCP at the assertion that laughed it away. But in this episode of the show, approximately 5 weeks, call it 6 weeks later, we're going to check in with David Valentin from Liaison Strategies. They've got new polling numbers that show that were an election to be held in Alberta today, the truth is you're going to have to wait 30 seconds to find out what the poll says. That's because this episode is proudly presented by our friends at Hansen Distillery. And, of course, we're really proud to have a bottle of Hansen's 5-year aged whiskey on the table. This is their Northern Eyes whiskey. This year, they also released a 7-year aged bottle. We can't just leave it out here on the table or people would pop in and try to steal it. That's how highly coveted these bottles are. It's the first time any distillery in the Metro Edmonton region has ever released a 7-year aged whiskey. How cool is that? Hansen Distillery is Edmonton's original distillery, rooted in prairie grit and a rebellious spirit, known for authentic small batch whiskey plus vodka, gin, moonshine, and really unique liqueurs crafted right here in the capital city with local Alberta ingredients. And every bottle tells a story of passion, heritage, and hands-on craftsmanship. So we invite you to raise a glass to real talk, to real spirits. You can visit Hansen Distillery on 174th Street, 111th Avenue, just north of Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West, or keep an eye out for their latest creations wherever you pick up fine spirits. You can also visit their website, hansendistillery.com, to learn more about the story of their startup. I just love it. It's proudly local. It's always original. Hansen is made right here. All right, so the cliffhanger, our apologies, but we wanted to hand things over right away to David Valentin at Liaison Strategies. A new poll out shows that Alberta's two main parties are neck and neck. Let's get to the pollster behind this. Let's get to the analysis, the insight. David, welcome back to the show. It's nice to see your face. How you been holding up?
I've been doing well, though I'm a little cold today. How about you?
Oh, my gosh, buddy. You know, it's one of those days where we just sort of like hunker down. We've got lots of stuff to talk about, but I'm not going to be going outside anytime soon. I'll tell you that much. These two parties, the UCP, the Alberta NDP, neck and neck. Talk to us about maybe where your head was at. We don't often ask pollsters to get a little personal, but before the process rolled out, before these Albertans were polled, what was your assumption or what was kind of your anecdotal sense of where these two parties were at?
Well, I wasn't sure because, you know, we obviously pay attention to other polling firms as well, the work product that they put out. And it's been weird. You know, we've heard about, could there be an early election in Alberta? Maybe yes, maybe no. The premier has said on the record there won't be one. But, you know, from an Ontario perspective, we've seen an early Ontario election here. We saw how well it did for the progressive conservatives here in Ontario. And we said, you know, a lot of things are moving very quickly. Things with Venezuela are moving quickly, though. Of course, it'll take time for their oil sector to be able to get up and running, if it ever does, given the instability that still is occurring there. So we thought, you know, we should go in, take a look, see what we can find. And I try to approach these things with an open mind in terms of, I don't have any expectations as to what I'm going to see. But, you know, we are more interested in many respects in sort of things like response rates and other metrics that tell us whether or not we have a lot of confidence in the data. And of course, you know, we're very happy and proud to say that when we look at the polling that took place in the federal election for Alberta, when you look at all the final polls that were conducted, what the Alberta numbers were, that we ranked number one among the polling firms for that sub-regional sample of Alberta in the federal election. So we were looking to see, is there anything we can do to improve our sample in Alberta? Is there anything we can do to structure it differently so that we can get a better result? But we're pretty happy with that methodology, so we stuck with it for this time around.
Hey, David, can you take us behind the curtain before we kind of dig into the findings of this poll on how a pollster or how a polling firm like yours, Liaison, can ensure accuracy? Of course, everybody wants to be the closest. Everybody wants to be able to say we called it or we told you so. But how do you actually? I mean, I guess I'm asking you to reveal your secret sauce or how you got the caramel into the caramel bar. But how do you do it?
Well, I think the number one thing for me is you have to learn from your mistakes. I've been pretty lucky to work in the space for 13 years. And what that means is that you get a lot of things right, but you also have errors along the way. And I think that the worst thing you can do is mess up and say, okay, let's get defensive. Okay, it didn't work this one time. Let's just try the same thing again and again and see if we can make it work again. For me, what we're always trying to do is figure out new ways to improve, figure out, okay, how can we reverse engineer potential problems we made? Sometimes you're going to get a bad sample, and there's nothing you can do about that. A lot of the times you see for polling, it's accurate 19 times out of 20. What we're trying to tell you with that is, every once in a while, there's going to be an outlier survey, and that's perfectly normal. The way that it usually manifests is not that the entire survey is an outlier. It means that maybe the number for women was an outlier, or the number in Calgary was an outlier. Very rare you would see all the pieces of the survey be out of place. But all that being said, we're trying to figure out what's the best frame. The census can be, it's a little stale now, so we're trying to project out, what are more accurate population figures. Those are the kind of things that we look at as we're trying to figure out what are the targets going to be for the survey.
Okay, so you and your firm talks to a random sample of 1,000 Albertans from the 7th to the 11th of January. So we're talking basically a couple of weeks ago. We'll dig into some of the data. We'll get into the major urban centers, the rural areas, key files in front of government, the premier's job performance or how Albertans are evaluating. But generally speaking, I mean, the big number that jumps out to me, at least off the hop, if a provincial election were held today, you have found that 46% of voters say they would support the UCP, 44% say they would support the NDP. In your line of work, is that generally about as tight as it gets?
Well, we've seen tighter. We've seen a dead heat where it's completely even. But this is a pretty tight race, at least on the surface. If you're looking at the popular vote, it's pretty evenly matched. But of course, as you and I both know, the next Albertan election won't be decided on the popular vote, right? That's not how these things work. We actually are much more interested in how this will work out when we look at the local ridings.
Okay, so can you take us into some of those? I mean, you don't poll riding by riding, do you? I mean, you're not looking at close to 90 ridings.
No, we're not going to do a survey by the ridings, but because the poll is grouped out in regions, you can extrapolate from that what you will. And what we're seeing in broad terms, the NDP are doing very well in Edmonton. They're competitive, but still behind the Conservatives in Calgary. And everywhere else, the UCP has a pretty sizable lead. And so what does that mean for the seat counts? It means a lot of the vote for the NDP is locked in Edmonton. Now, it's always nicer to win an election by 15,000 votes rather than 10,000 votes or 5,000 votes. But a win's a win. If all your votes are in Edmonton, there's only so many ridings that you can pick up there. So this is part of the problem for Mr. Nenshi that he's going to have to figure out how to solve. He can do very well in Edmonton. He can do very well in the popular vote. But if we look at our numbers and we, map them across the 90 ridings, our expectation would still actually be either a UCP majority government or a UCP minority government. And I think more than likely we'd be seeing a majority with these numbers today.
Yeah. So, I mean, pretty interesting. Like you said, the numbers, NDP dominating Edmonton with a 60% support. To give folks a general sense, it's more than double of the UCP support in Edmonton. They're at 29%. In Calgary, I mean, it's a little tighter. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm a little surprised in Calgary. UCP leads at 48%, the NDP at 43%. I mean, that's not a massive discrepancy. But if you look at Edmonton and then the rest of Alberta,
Yeah.
This is what really jumped. That's a perspective check to me. The NDP, as we mentioned, leads Edmonton with 60% support. The UCP holds a lead in the rest of Alberta. In other words, everywhere else except for the capital city, 54% to 36. I mean, that's pretty striking.
That's pretty striking, and it will mean, seats like Medicine Hat are going to go UCP. And, if you're Mr. Nenshi, you got to figure out where are the seats where you can actually win and place resources, star candidates and time. And right now, Edmonton, you wouldn't have a tough problem recruiting someone to run Edmonton for you. And Calgary, okay, the numbers aren't quite where they might want things to be. But, Mr. Nenshi was also mayor of Calgary. So there's got to be some nostalgia for him. Maybe that'll kick in a little later. But he's got to know people in Calgary who he can call upon to become good candidates for him. It's outside those two cities that things really take a turn, and that's where candidate recruitment, I think, will be the hardest.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, and I guess we'll be able to tell in the next election whether or not Nenshi's history as mayor of Calgary will help him or hurt him in that city. Obviously, he enjoyed immense popularity. If you look back, I mean, it's almost funny to look back and realize that was like 12, 13, 14 years ago we're talking about, at probably the height of the hysteria around his campaign and the enthusiasm around this, relatively new guy, at least politically speaking, that had sort of made a splash, and there was that purple wave, and everybody remembers. I don't remember the official title, but he won like world's best mayor or something like that, and Calgarians rallied around the flood response in particular. But by the time he was done, and many politicians experienced this exact same thing. I mean, it's tough to remain popular for 10 plus years. It's tough to win more than 3 elections in a row and still remain favorable and have people remember you fondly. But I would imagine, and I saw some anecdotal evidence of this through the most recent municipal elections back in October, there's a lot of people that down in Calgary that probably feel like Mr. Nenshi's history as mayor of Calgary might actually hurt him and hurt the NDP in that city.
Well, we're seeing the UCP try to turn the tables on him with that exactly. And of course, when they're looking for someone to blame for the water crisis in Calgary, whose name is it they're bringing up? It's Mr. Nenshi. So we'll see if it's a hurt or a help. I think for some voters, they'll be very happy. They have good memories. Other voters, it's quite the opposite. So he can be a polarizing figure. That being said, he needs to make up some ground somehow in the city, be competitive, take more of those seats away because he's having such a hard and tough headwind outside of the urban centers.
We're talking to David Valentin from Liaison Strategies in our feature interview today, presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. Let's dig into some of your numbers on job performance, sort of a job evaluation, if you will, on behalf of Albertans, or at least the 1,000 of them that were polled by your firm when it comes to whether or not Albertans approve or disapprove of the job that Danielle Smith's doing as Premier of Alberta. 41% of those polled say they approve, 46% disapprove, 13 of them, 13% that is, not quite sure. Can you put that into perspective for us, maybe as stacked up against other premiers or maybe even other Alberta premiers at this point in their tenure? Or what's your measuring point there?
Well, we have some approval ratings for other premiers we've released this month, including today for Ontario. Premier Doug Ford with a 31% approval rating, 65% disapproval.
Jeez.
So that's going to be the lower of the pack. Over in Nova Scotia, Premier Tim Houston doing markedly better than Mr. Ford in positive territory, unlike Danielle Smith. And of course, we poll the Prime Minister's approval rating every week. He's doing pretty well right now. He's in positive territory with a plus 16. So, to take all of that into consideration, because all these numbers were collected in January, just in the last few weeks, she's not doing too badly. And I know she's in negative territory right now. It's a -5. But when you look at the other premiers that have been around for a long time, they accumulate a lot of baggage, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, but they accumulate it. And it's not unsurprising to see them in the -10, -teens, -20s. Mr. Ford obviously is in the -30s territory. But so for her to have a -5, relative to everyone else, it's not bad. It's pretty good, actually. Now, that being said, you'd obviously always would rather be in positive territory than negative territory. So, the -5 isn't great, but relative to everyone else who's been around for a while, it's not too bad.
What's your assessment, by the way? I hope you don't mind if we jump around a little bit, but why do you think Premier Ford is being evaluated so, to say it frankly, so poorly by Ontarians? Where is he really dropping the ball in their estimation?
Well, I think, if you listen to what he said this week, a lot of it might come down to housing. He talked about his campaign platform, which he implemented to take the HST off homes for new buyers. And, even he admits it hasn't worked. He needs to find a different strategy. Housing starts in Ontario are, of course, down. Hospitals are being squeezed. We see emergency rooms are sometimes closed in the province. The union representing childcare workers is about to go on strike. So there's lots of different issues that are playing out here in Ontario. And listen, it's also January. The one thing that unifies all Canadians is we all get our credit card bills from the holidays right about now, so people can be in a very fiscally minded mood. But also, there's a big contrast between Doug Ford, who set himself up as Captain Canada, and Mark Carney, who just gave that speech at Davos. So I think for some people, that contrast can be a help, but sometimes it can be a hurt. And of course, there's lots of little mini issues popping up, including his battle with Crown Royale and the fight that he's picked with Premier Wab Canoe. So people are seeing all sorts of different priorities. For the Premier, a big selling point for a long time was his attention to alcohol. But I think now, as we see really serious matters taking place, people might be wondering if this whole gambit with Crown Royale is just a distraction.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of the Crown Royal battle without just laughing at Johnny and I were chuckling at this for so long when he went to dump out the big bottle and it had the what do you call those, the quick pour thing, but it's the spout, yeah. But it was like the plastic piece that was in, so it was just dribbling and it was just kind of this sad. I don't know. It's just, as a politician, people would say, well, who cares? But it's so funny when a photo op goes wrong. It just kind of it burns itself into people's memories, like mine, for all the wrong reasons.
Well, I mean, we're in interesting times here in Ontario. His disapproval hasn't been this low since the Greenbelt scandal that we had out here. So it's weird that his disapproval is as low as that time, because there is no pertinent scandal in the same way. And certainly there's been this whole issue with a skills development fund, and money went to companies that were very closely linked to the Conservative government, and that's been in the headlines for a while. But we haven't really seen it manifest itself into an enduring storyline, at least at the legislature, for quite some time. So we'll keep an eye on that and see how things evolve over here. But in Alberta, there's lots of different challenges as well. And I think, for all the, there's more metrics that we can get into today about Danielle Smith. But I think all things considered, she's doing pretty well in terms of these approvals, even though she's a little on the negative side.
By the way, it's called a flow restrictor. I looked it up in the bottle of booze. A flow restrictor is what gave Doug Ford his issues. In our live chat, powered by Park Power, Charlie Brown says Nenshi is not liked in Calgary. Meantime, Jay Best says, I love how Nenshi is somehow responsible for a 100-year lifespan pipeline. He's talking about the water mains dying after 50 years when he was mayor for 11 years of that. Are the Conservatives held to that same standard by the same people? So we have some disagreement in the live chat. No surprise. I mean, I guess Albertans are split as well, per your polling results, on whether or not the province is headed in the right or wrong direction. Look at this. 43% polled say that Alberta's headed in the right direction. 45% say it's in the wrong direction. Again, there's that number again, 13%. Not quite sure. I mean, this is a province split. That's, basically 50-50, if you want to call it that.
What's always interesting to me is the proportion of voters who will tell you things are going the wrong way. I don't like the way the premier is doing her job. But they will also tell you, some of them, a small minority, they're voting for the UCP government. So, to me, this is always a lesson that even though you might not be doing so well, the question is, how well will the other person do, right? And this gets to the crux of the matter. When you're casting your vote, you might say they're not doing as well as I would like, but I think that other person might do worse.
David, your team asked about the trust factor, which is pretty interesting. So I'll ask you to dig in on this. If you're just joining our live stream presented by California Closets, we're talking to David Valentin from Liaison Strategies. And you can check out what they do, by the way, by visiting liaisonstrategies.ca. We'll link to that in the show notes for the podcast and on YouTube. You've asked Albertans which leader they trust the most to manage key files We can hit each of these individually, take it as you will, but healthcare, education, and the economy. These are the three big ones, obviously.
That's right. And when you look at healthcare, it's Mr. Nenshi who's leading the pack. He's got 39% trust. Daniel Smith, not too far behind, 34%. Education, Mr. Nenshi also coming in at 39%. Daniel Smith, very similar number, 33%. But when you look at the economy, here's the big reversal. Daniel Smith's at 39%. Trust for Mr. Nenshi is 34%. So we're seeing things are pretty, there's this 5-point margin. It's in Mr. Nenshi's favor for healthcare and education. It's on the economy when it comes to that Miss Smith gets her footing and she's in the lead. So we're seeing this dichotomy. And the question now, of course, is going to be probably in the next election of these three issues, healthcare, education, the economy, which is the most important one.
Yeah, no kidding. So this is, if I'm, Pete Guthrie or Scott Sinclair with the Alberta Tory Party, now they're calling it. They wanted to call themselves the PCs. I think most folks that listen to this program regularly know that the Alberta government has, kind of cock-blocked their move there and basically outlawed use of the word conservative and naming any new parties. The government's position is that they were trying to obfuscate the landscape and basically steal the Conservatives' intellectual property around the brand of the PCs. And so they're now going by the Alberta Tory Party, the Alberta Party. I'll look to your numbers here. We're talking about the 46% that say that they'd vote for the UCP, the 44% that say that they'd vote for the NDP. 4% of Albertans say that they would vote for the Alberta Liberals, which is very interesting. Respectfully, nobody's heard a peep from the Alberta Liberals for like a decade.
I think a lot of that has to do with Mr. Carney's brand.
Yeah.
Right? People are hearing the word liberal and they go, well, maybe I don't hate them so much today. Right? Maybe I have to be interested in that.
But I mean, stop 50 people on the street anywhere in Alberta and ask them who the leader of the Alberta Liberal Party is, and I'd be blown away if one person can answer. And I'm not trying to be a jerk. I mean, I just don't think that anybody knows. Anyway, 2% say they'd vote for the Greens. That's the same number that say that they would vote for the Alberta Tories. I mean, that's got to be a gut punch for those guys. I know they're going to say, listen, this project's in its infancy and we're going to be all over people's radar and we're going to be grinding and working hard and knocking on doors and fundraising over the next number of months. But gosh, 2%?
Yeah. And I mean, two very important notes. One is that there are going to be some voters who don't want to say they're undecided and they're looking for placeholders. I would be pretty shocked. The Alberta Liberals got 4%. I'd be pretty surprised.
There's not a chance. I'll say
a whole 2%. For me, that's just people parking their vote somewhere, and it helps us sort of weed out, who's undecided, who's, and we look at the Alberta Liberal scores, and we can see sort of where they might lean in terms of who they think would do best on healthcare, education, the economy. They're not choosing the Alberta Party Liberal leader. In terms of the Progressive Tory Party, I think part of the problem for them might be our methodology, which is that we try to differentiate as best we can between the federal parties and the provincial parties. So if you're getting a questionnaire from us at the federal level, you're being asked about the Liberal Party led by Mark Carney. If you're being asked, in Alberta, are you supporting the NDP? You're getting asked about the NDP led by Mr. Nenshi, right? And so when we asked about the Progressive Tory Party, we also included the leader name. We also said the Progressive Tories led by Peter Guthrie.
Right.
And what that means is that, the opportunity for people to think this means PC is sort of taken away, right? Now, that's just a facet of the fact that we are trying to get clarity from people. But, maybe if you just polled Progressive Tory, it would do a little better. I don't think it would do that much better given these numbers, but maybe they would get a little closer to 5 or 6%. I actually think that more people might have selected the Alberta Party if that was an option, because at least they know what that is.
This is an interesting comment from My Name Goes Here in our live chat. Thanks for your YouTube channel membership. Wondering for your take, David, on the answer bias. Says, I know like a lot of hardcore UCPers that would never answer to a pollster. It goes on to sort of like take it into comedic fashion, but what are they talking about there? Take us into that.
Well, I think what they're talking about is people who self-select themselves out of questionnaires, right? People who distrust, government and polling firms, but who will still show up to the polls and vote UCP. And, our way of having checks and balances for this is, on our back end, we ask demographic questions. We don't publish all of them. We have special checks for education. We have special checks for income. And so we can make sure we're seeing what we want to see in terms of a dynamic sample that reflects the province accurately. Now, are you ever able to create a poll that's 100% perfect? No, there's always going to be communities that don't answer at the same rates or who aren't in a position to be able to be polled correctly, right? And I'm thinking, it's very hard to do surveys of Indigenous communities. That's just part and parcel of their digital infrastructure sometimes. It's very hard to do surveys of homeless populations because well, it's the transient population group. And someone out there could say, well, it's not really a survey of all Albertans if you don't get those two numbers 100% right. And they can make that argument, and I understand it. Again, we have ways to adjust for these things. We have ways to make sure we're getting a sample that's as accurate as we possibly can make it. Perfection's not always is not always attainable, right? But we want to make sure we have as much confidence in the sample as possible, and that's why we're looking for different mixtures of education and income to make sure we're hitting every category the way we need to.
Hey, David, I want to ask you one final question about this Alberta polling, and then I want to ask you a quick one about your federal polling. There's been an interesting trend of note there, not major movement, but interesting enough. But regarding Alberta, younger voters, those 18 to 34, are favoring the NDP, although it's not massive. 47% say they would favor the NDP. That would be the leading party in that age demo. Those that are age 65 and older strongly support the UCP. Again, though, not wild, 54%. But, people will always point out, they'll talk about like people who vote, right? Though these are the people who vote. You got to reach the people who vote. And typically what they mean by that is older people. Typically, generally speaking, although there have been some circumstances where this is definitely not accurate, young people may participate in some sort of political process. They'll tweet about they're not on Twitter. They'll be on TikTok talking about things, Instagram posting this, but they don't actually, generally speaking, tend to vote. How big of an issue is this for the NDP? It's one thing. It's encouraging to lead in a young demo. The leaders of tomorrow believe in us. The leaders of tomorrow, we're their party, but not if they don't go out and vote.
Well, and this goes to, there's different types of people who are 18 to 34, right? There's those who have employment. There's those with high levels of education. There's those with high incomes. High education and high income is actually a better determinator of if you're going to vote than your age category is. So, it becomes this very difficult question of which 18 to 34-year-old voters are they doing better upon and which ones are the UCP doing better with, right? And we could have a very long and complicated conversation about that. And we would definitely at that point have to have a 18 to 34 oversample. We would want a much larger sample of 18 to 34 to have that discussion. So for me, obviously you want to have as many possible, in your voter universe, as many voters as possible who have a long history of voting. The older you are, the longer that history could be, right? Ideally, if you're a older woman who votes in the advanced polls, that would be your dream target for a political party, because the chances that that person's going to vote again, and probably in advance, is very, very high. All that being said, when we look at the population sizes, the 18 to 34 cohort is really important, both in terms of population and also, as I mentioned, contains a lot of really high value targets within that group who are highly educated, have high incomes, very motivated to vote when it comes to election time.
Let's talk federal politics just for a moment. Your federal tracker, again, people can check out liaisonstrategies.ca. This polling, basically hot off the press, shows that the Liberals are widening their lead over the Conservatives among decided and leaning voters. Liberals are leading with 40% support as compared to the Conservatives at 35%. I'll ask you about the NDP at 11%. We had an interesting conversation with Avi Lewis earlier this week. But what is it that's working well for the Liberals? Why are the Conservatives losing ground?
For me, it's just the headlines. Mr. Carney went to China. Whether you like China or not, and some people don't, he got a trade deal. And that's pretty big news for people. They're seeing progress. They're seeing some diversification of the Canadian economy. I think that's always an asset, and broadly speaking, the numbers are reflecting that. But a lot of it is also, the voter universe is shifting. We're seeing the Liberals are losing some of their voters to the NDP, and the Conservatives are losing some of their voters to the Liberals. So we're having this interesting dichotomy of directions here. And what it's really meant is not that the 40% is unusual in terms of Liberal support. It's just the 35% is getting softer for the Conservatives. Liberals regionally still doing well, still having some major problems in Quebec, where they're effectively tied with the Bloc Québécois. That province seems to be a little more resistant to this charm offensive, but also thinking logically, there's less conservative voters for the Liberals to poach in Quebec, right? There they have weird three-way race, depending where in the province you're looking at with the Bloc Québécois. And those voters not only seem to be staying put, they seem to be increasing. So the same thing that's working for them in the rest of the country can't really work there in the same way. So it's been interesting to watch. Not a lot of movement, but some. For me, the most interesting number is that Mr. Carney's approval, which has been on a very steady slide, not only has the slide stopped, his approval rating is now actually going up. And we'll have to see when we do the tracker for this week, and we'll release it on Monday, if this Davos speech and all these international headlines has resulted in more approval for him, and where that's taking the Liberal numbers.
You probably don't like to speculate before you've done the polling, right? I mean, that's, your deal is like, we did the polls we believe to be reputable, and here's what we found. But what would be your guess? My guess would be that Davos speech would there'd be a nice little bump there for Carney.
I think what's interesting to me is anecdata, which is what I call anecdotal data. I've shortened into anecdata to save myself a syllable. And by the way, people can go to liaisonstrategies.ca if they want to save themselves, a second. They can also now go to liaison.ca, which will take them to the, so they can save themselves a few keystrokes. But what's interesting about this Davos speech is how many people sent me the speech. And, my mom texted me and said, "Who wrote this speech?" within an hour of it being given. And I was like, why is my mom watching Mr. Carney's speech?
Sure.
I was a little confused because I thought she was at work. But either way, I think the social chatter about this has been really high. The number of TikTok videos I've seen shared about this has been really high. I think the awareness is high. And it sort of hits all of his points that he wants to hit of making him into a international statesman. Canada is back. We're speaking truth to power, even though the speech doesn't name America or any country, to be fair. And then, Mr. Trump has amplified the speech by taking shots at the Prime Minister and at Canada and, putting himself back in the window. We know that when the words Canada and Trump are in headlines, that Mr. Carney's party suddenly begins to do a lot better. We saw that during the federal election. We've seen a lot of the surges in support have been tied to that. And so what are the headlines this week? All about Davos, Trump criticizing Mr. Carney's speech. Now he's been uninvited, Mr. Carney, to the Board of Peace for Gaza. So more headlines for him with Mr. Trump's name included in them. So, we'll see what happens. The reality is Canadians have to believe this is going to be helpful in some way, I think, for that to matter to their voting intentions. But do I think his approval rating could see a bump when we release the survey on Monday? We'll have to wait to see.
Yeah. Like you said, anecdata. I love that. I'm not going to steal it. I will attribute it to you every time I use it. But I do like it. I see some conservative friends. I was at the hockey game last night, always running into folks and had some interesting conversations. Everybody's talking about the Carney Davos speech. They are. Some conservatives begrudgingly acknowledging that it was, that they felt that it stirred something among Canadians. But like you said as well, the jury's out on whether or not it might actually do more harm than good in the relationship with the United States. After we wrap with you, we're going to play some audio from Secretary Howard Lutnick, and Gavin Newsom's in Canada's corner on this one, or at least he's perennially or perpetually opposing Trump. So that's working out for Canada right now. David, before we thank you for your time, you got time for one more? I'm checking out your website. Looks great, by the way. Your team is doing a ton of stuff right now at liaison.ca. A lot of polling across the country. It's really interesting insights in Ontario for members of our Ontario audience that want to check that out. But there's something that jumped out at me. We talked just yesterday with the past president of the Alberta Medical Association. He's a 30-year ER doc, Dr. Paul Parks. Just a remarkable interview on the show. I recommend people check it out. Describing Alberta as in a state of crisis. You may have seen that leaked report, leaked to outlets, including this one, that showed that there were 6 deaths of Albertans waiting for care, 30-plus critical near misses, they call them. Your team has found in polling across the country, 2 numbers jump out at me. Number one, almost half of Canadians or their immediate household members visited an ER in the last 12 months. That blows my mind. Almost half of Canadians or someone in their immediate household, and 1 in 5 of them reported leaving without being seen by a doctor. This is something that's a huge issue across the country.
It is. And, we call them ghost patients because there's no record. And so when you go to the ER and you register, you're put into the system. Now, the amount of people who are registered in the system and leave before they're seen is about 8%, give or take. So big difference between 8% and 20%. But here's the thing. If you show up to the ER and you see that it's packed, you ask someone, hey, what's the wait? Maybe it's someone in the ER, maybe it's someone who works for the hospital, and they say, I've been waiting for 12 hours. And you say, okay, I'm going to go home because I'll try again later. I'm not going to stick this out. You're not counted, right? No record exists that you showed up to the ER and had the intention of being seen. If you show up to an emergency room and it's closed, well, of course, you're not going to be counted either. So, here are the gap between what people are telling us and what the official statistics show. Well, the official statistics don't count everyone who is in that situation, who's in that category. And, we've seen, closed emergency rooms, not just in Ontario and not just in Alberta, but right across the country. And so this is an issue that I think is really emerging as a crisis for the country's healthcare system right now, especially when, depending on where you live, the emergency room might be your only option, right? There might not be a walk-in clinic that's open when you need it. There might not be a family health team that can see you. You might not have a family doctor. This might be, in your mind, the only real way to get care. And so it becomes this really unfortunate situation where, there are, of course, people who go to the ER who shouldn't go to the ER, but what if you actually need to be there and you just give up?
Yeah. No, it's just mind-blowing. I didn't realize, maybe it makes me sound silly, maybe it makes me sound naive. I didn't realize that half of Canadians, or at least half of Canadian households, let's say, were visiting an ER. What a reality check. That's like, almost 20 million ER visits at least, right? Assuming that each of them has just one. It's just a perspective check. Thank you for your regular perspective checks. We're sure grateful. We've been talking to David Valentin from Liaison Strategies. Check out liaison.ca, slick website, up-to-the-minute polling results. Really great stuff from across the country. David, thanks for doing this. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you got it, buddy. There you have it. A look at Alberta, some insights, federally speaking, and then on the healthcare file as well. David joining us in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. There's a lot to get into in our live chat powered by Park Power. Johnny and I got to catch up on that. Of course, we have the Flamethrower coming. But why don't we get into this? Johnny, I did hear back from our team member, Katie. Of course, Katie manages my dumpster fire of an inbox and does an amazing job doing that. And Real Talkers, as you know, we are proudly reminding you that the Citadel Theatre is getting set to welcome Death of a Salesman. That kicks off, well, right about now, everybody. Tomorrow night, if you're listening to this show the day we're doing it, this is going to be Saturday, the 24th of January, Death of a Salesman at the Citadel Theatre. This is an iconic production. Who doesn't love Death of a Salesman? You can check out citadeltheatre.com to get your tickets. Maybe you've never seen it. Maybe it's been years since you did. A gripping exploration of the American dream. A timeless classic that follows Willie Loman, a traveling salesman nearing the end of his career, as he struggles to reconcile his aspirations with reality. Burdened by unfulfilled dreams, family tensions, Willie's journey reveals deep truths about ambition, identity, and legacy. Death of a Salesman runs January 24th through February 15th at the Citadel Theatre. You can get your tickets today at citadeltheatre.com. We want to give a shout out to all of our Real Talk Patreon supporters and our YouTube channel members. Over the past week or so, we've invited you. We've given you the instructions on how to enter our contest, and of course, many of you did. We wish we could send all of you to the Citadel Theatre, but we do have 5 pairs of tickets to give away, so congratulations to Kelty Marshall, Bernie Coleman, Lindsay O'Neill, Pradeep Kulkarni, and Brian Shoneville. You are on your way to the Citadel Theatre to check out Death of a Salesman, and Katie will have your Citadel ticket vouchers in your email by noon today. Congratulations to all of you, and thanks to everybody that entered and continues to support the show. Our friends at Friesen Brothers have been putting good food on Alberta family dinner tables for more than 70 years now, but this year they've opened a brand new location. That is the Mother Dough Bread Co. Sandwiches, coffee, and bread. I absolutely love Mother Dough. We've made it a must-stop destination for our family. Anytime we're out in West Edmonton, they believe that great bread makes a perfect sandwich. That's always been Friesen Brothers' MO, and at Mother Dough, they're able to really carry on that tradition in a special way with specialty made-to-order sandwiches. Of course, fresh, daily baked loaves of bread you can take home to your family. And of course, they've got you covered for breakfast, sides, and desserts too, including those iconic Friesen Brothers sourdough cinnamon buns. You can check out Mother Dough Bread Co. today as well if you need a break from the usual ham and cheese. This month, the Southwest Smoked Pork Sandwich, with garlic butter, fresh chimichurri and arugula, and hot peppers if you like a little heat. Find out more by visiting motherdoughbreadco.com. I ran into our friends, Johnny, just yesterday at a nonprofit function from UCAN Youth Services. And boy, are they ever getting excited about UCAN Comedy Nights. Those are coming up in March, and we encourage you to be there. I mean, number one, just have a great time. Get your friends together. Take in some stand-up comedy, but you also do it with the knowledge that all of the funds raised through these UCAN Comedy Nights are going to support this incredible nonprofit that's creating employment opportunities for young people that otherwise, to be quite honest, are kind of falling through the cracks. You can check out ucan.ca to get your tickets. Good laughs, a great cause, and an even greater impact. March 9th through the 11th, March 16th through the 18th. That's UCAN Comedy Nights, and we encourage you to check those out. Interesting stuff from David Valentin at Liaison Strategies. Tyler is in our live chat, powered by Park Power, says, well, I completely disagree with what Danielle Smith is doing in Alberta. Tyler says, I do know that there are policies that would greatly affect me personally in a negative way with the NDP. And he says, I really hope that the Alberta, and then he has in brackets, the Alberta PC party comes back. I got to be honest with you, I don't know if I should be surprised or not, but 2% polling, and I'm not trying to kind of pile on, maybe everybody would just rather, like the Alberta Tory supporters, and some of my friends are among them. I'm not trying to be cute or snide or dismissive.
The Altories.
The Altories. Gosh, to be polling at 2%, and for the Alberta Liberals, who are like again, respectfully to whoever's left at the Alberta Liberals, like, did somebody turn the lights off when they all
left? I had no idea. Like, do they?
No. Like, you could have $100 bill and you can walk down downtown Calgary, downtown Edmonton, downtown Red Deer, downtown Grand Prairie, wherever you are.
You go to the office. There's no one in there.
Who's the leader of the Alberta Liberals? And ask anybody with a $100 bill who's the leader of the and they will have one, I'm sure. This is sad, but like, I don't know. Gone are the days of Kevin Taft and Lawrence.
We're gonna get an email.
And maybe
next week on the show.
And I'm not trying to be a jerk at all. John Rogavine. Okay, John is there you go. Okay, an accomplished lawyer.
John.
I've heard of John before.
Yeah.
John Okay, he's the leader of the Alberta Liberal Party. But like, when's the last time that and again, I'm not trying to. Yeah, I got to be kind of careful here because we don't ever want to just kind of like scoff and laugh and mock people. Unless they think that Alberta would be better off separating from Canada. But with the Alberta Liberals, it's like they're just an absolute non-factor. The Alberta Liberals used to be a political, I don't know if I want to say force, but they were a factor in Alberta for decades, like Lawrence Decor and Kevin Taft, and I can think through the elections. Like there were times when the Alberta Liberals held double-digit seats. Like everyone was curious to know what they would think on budget day or whatever. Now it's like, what? Like, David Kahn, remember back, he kind of led them for a while, and David's a nice enough guy, and I think did his best, but the party was just like skidding off the track. But I don't know how I analyze this. I'll get into the live chat here to see what Real Talkers are saying. But if I'm an Alberta Tory supporter, let's call it, the Alberta Party, the PCs, whatever, and they're going to have to really work on branding, to state the obvious, to get their name out there. And I think that there's a lot of people that are seeking to understand what they actually stand for and what they'll represent. How are they most different from the UCP, and how are they most different from the NDP, if there is truly going to be kind of a third party that factors into this? But gosh, what a perspective check on the work they've got cut out for them. Justin says the Alberta government limiting what parties can call themselves is so pathetic. I would agree. Erica says, Ned Nenshi may have had issues when he was mayor of Calgary, but don't forget that he was, the UCP was trying to control him at that point. So that's got to be considered as well. Christy, thanks for your YouTube channel membership. Christy says water's becoming a really big issue in West Central Alberta. Says they're handing out water permits like chiclets while farmers' wells are drying up. Water could be an interesting issue. We've had some folks, some regulars in our chat that bring many conversations back to water security, water availability, the value of water, the United States having its eyes on our water. Trevor's watching us on Facebook this morning. What's up, Trevor? Says the NDP will always support very socialist ideas which promote government-funded programs, and says that those cost taxpayers. Unfortunately, that's the main problem with socialism. And then he quotes Margaret Thatcher, eventually you run out of other people's money. Goramut says if the abysmal state of healthcare got the coverage it deserved, Alberta might have a chance of turfing the UCP like it deserves to be turfed. Says thanks to Real Talk for the coverage. And then Goramut just banging on that drum says everybody give the show a like. Goramut, I sure appreciate that. I was happy to see our buddy Explorer Hollis chime in our live chat. He's received what we sent him. After I think that, Johnny, you've been doing a great job reminding people that we do have our YouTube channel memberships that they can invest in if they want to find a way to support the show. And Hollis says, look at all that beautiful green. Everybody's names light up in green when you become a YouTube channel member. Hollis says, look at the beautiful green. He's encouraging his fellow Real Talkers to sign up as a member. He says, like the episode. He says, I just got my sticker pack with a handwritten Jespo note and 2 packs of matches for my joints. That from Hollis. So Hollis will be lighting his joints this weekend with Real Talk matches. So there you go. I can guarantee there's no other political talk show in Alberta that's sending you matches to light your joints, guys.
Oh, gosh.
I can guarantee it.
Oh, gosh.
Maybe if you put enough in our super chat, we'll send you something to smoke with those matches. What? No, we won't. No, we absolutely won't. Super chat Ken says, with respect to the pollster, this was an IVR poll. He says IVR polls are challenging as they require people to answer and they don't have a human element. And he says, and they can also skew heavily to the landline response. So this is Ken's talking about interactive voice recording, IVR. And so to ensure a representative sample, and this is from Liaison's website, you can read about this yourself, liaison.ca. Participants reach through random digit dialing, otherwise known as RDD, across both landline and mobile phone networks. For the total sample, the margin of error is plus or minus 3.1 percentage points, 19 times out of 20. So that's where you have it. The team at Liaison is quite, how do I put it? They're not bashful. They're pretty proud about where they stack up on their polling results and sort of how they've performed over the years. And you would have heard David say that when he first joined me, like right out of the gates. That was one of the first things that he was talking about is how they've performed. Check this out. I saw Wise Kyle in our chat right away as soon as we brought David on, was kind of like, Liaison stinks. Liaison is consistently near the bottom when it comes to accuracy. They do acknowledge in their report, which you can download yourself and check it out, the full results of this Alberta politics poll. They say nobody's perfect, but when it came to the most recent federal poll accuracy, it was Main Street that took top honors. Liaison was number 2 for accuracy. Angus Reid third, and then it drops from there. Cardinal, Nanos, and Research Co. When it comes to their Alberta federal polling accuracy, they were number 1, like he said on our show about 20 minutes ago. Pollara was number 2, Research Co. number 3, and it drops from there. And their Ontario accuracy, they're number 1 as well. Main Street number 2, Innovative 3, Research Co. number 4. So it's always nice to be able to say I told you so. Of course, no pollster is has a crystal ball and is able to sort of 100% nail it every single time. But generally speaking, they've performed relatively well. MetaModern says, imagine associating the UCP with the personal value of merit while they give Stephen Harper's son a job with no qualifications. Interesting. Others of you sort of have interesting takes on, ridings and how they're going to factor in specific ridings. It feels a little niche to get into right now, generally speaking, trend-wise. I'd be curious to know how the political parties themselves are analyzing this stuff. This provincial government and this federal government, for that matter, Johnny, is going to be making a decision whether or not they're going to call an election this year. And there could be, this could be an absolutely wild year. We're buckling up talk show-wise. We could see a federal election. We could see an Alberta provincial election. We could see referendums in 2 different provinces. I'd be curious to know what the Premier, I'd be curious to know what Nenshi thinks about these polling results. Are they as close as they think? Nenshi believes that his party would win the election. He told us that a month ago.
It would mean our work gets really, really hopping, and I love that. I love
it's good.
The stress comes, but I love that too. But I'm hearing all this election talk. I don't want to say it, but I've got an election. It rhymes with election.
We might need to make T-shirts. Nah, it's a little graphic.
I'm antsy with this election. I've got an election.
Are you excited?
Just kidding.
Are you excited? You're that excited about the possibility of an election?
I'll gear down over here.
Wow.
Several elections.
Scarlett says anecdata. What a great.
That was a great
Isn't that good? I'm 100% stealing that, although I'll try to attribute it to him. Cliff says Mark Carney did likely receive a boost from his Davos performance, but he's going to have to back it up next week when they're back in the House of Commons. It says walk the talk, as they say. Cliff's 100% right. Canadians still are waiting to see what Mark Carney can actually get done with the United States and whether or not. The funny thing is, Carney, it's what blows my mind. I'm not going to say anything profound here, guys, so keep your expectations low. But what blows my mind is the president of the United States can go basically anywhere like a bull in a china shop and just start fires and pick fights and say that he's going to take Greenland and then call Greenland Iceland and then insult NATO and talk. We can get into all this. We will. We have some audio we want to play you as you head into the weekend. We want this podcast to be the one you're listening to while you're walking your dogs, gosh, the president, just what he says. And then Canada responds back. Mark Carney sort of steps in front of, his fellow global leaders, his colleagues, NATO. It's not funny, but it's funny. We laugh so we don't cry, as we say. But he delivers this articulate, insightful, inspiring
not
speech.
only that,
the American perspective is well, now you've gone and done it, Canada.
Well, not really. You've got Americans applauding him too, but of course on the Republicans, of course, and fans of Trump and MAGA and Trump's team, of course. But what was even more I don't know if you've seen, but there's TikToks of him when he started this speech, and we're not seeing those clips. He went for 20 minutes in French first off the bat, which we all know when he became prime minister, he was rusty or not as fluent in French as he should be for that kind of seat, right?
Yeah.
But now, he said he came up to the podium. He said, "I'm going to start in French," and he just went into it. And I think that right away. You'd never see Trump get up at a podium and speak another language first, or talk to everyone in Spanish or another language prominent in the States. So it kind of gave him this prestige right off the bat, and then he went into this whole speech that was whatever. And then we're like, okay, who's the speechwriter? Like our first guest here today said their mother asked them, and then you find out he wrote it all himself. I mean, whether you like the party or the man or even the content of the speech, you have to at least give props to how well-written and eloquent it was, and just the master vocabulary where you can bob and weave and not deliver an uppercut to Trump by saying his name like that the whole time.
Yeah.
And I think, like our first guest said again, David, like the team knows what they're doing now. I mean, they knew that a speech of that magnitude was going to go viral, and it has. That's all you can see on social media right now is clips of this speech all the last 48 hours.
100%. You're 100% right. By the way, totally random observation. Sometimes I
I
like to touch on live chat stuff just before it disappears. This is unrelated to anything we're talking about, but this is J-Dog in our live chat powered by Park Power says, can anybody advise what happened to the Discourse podcast? They've had no activity since December 13th. This is J-Dog.
Hey,
pretty
come
neat
on.
opportunity for Cheryl Oates, who got tapped on the shoulder to go serve as Premier David Eby's chief of staff. Major job opportunity. So Cheryl and her family are moving out to BC. I believe it's like a limited term. All those kinds of jobs are kind of limited term.
I mean, you can't really paint how their future's going to be, but
never
this
know.
is an incredible opportunity.
Incredible opportunity. So she's dropping everything and
They're on
heading out
pause.
there, and her husband and their beautiful daughter are going to be heading out there as well. And Erica, I do know that there's a plan. I do know what the plan is. I am not at liberty to announce it, so I won't.
We'll let you know.
But we'll let you know, and we can confirm that our friends at the Discourse, and we're really proud of what they've done, they are not going away. They're just on hiatus till they get their game plan together. Why don't we get to where some of this audio is at, Johnny?
Yeah, I was just going to say, sorry, before you get to it, is that the fact that Carney's speech is going so viral and everyone from every country, not just the Americans, you've got the people who were there from Italy and Europe and the UK all talking about the same speech. It overshadowed some of the other people there who said incredible things, like we're about to get to, Gavin Newsom and others.
Well, why don't we let's start with Canada's Prime Minister, because I think this is interesting. So you guys know the drill. You know, it's kind of funny, right? Sometimes it's like, we serve this audience that's like super plugged in and knows what's going on. And then, of course, we always get these new audience members that have heard that Real Talk is talking about the real life around politics and how to kind of understand it at a ground level. So I'm always torn whether or not we need the primers and the explainers before this stuff. But let's go into this really quickly. So the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, in Davos, Switzerland, speaks to an audience in Davos and captivates the room for about 16 minutes and basically talks about his vision for Canada. He references, you have to listen to our interview earlier this week with Senator Charles Adler if you really want to get the personal take on this, talking about communism in the 1950s and hanging the signs and taking the signs out of the shop windows, and really like an inspiring I would describe the speech as a cerebral, credible, inspiring speech. And then the president of the United States, Donald Trump, when Air Force One lands in Davos, steps in front of a microphone and basically says, like, Canada gets a lot. I mean, I'll paraphrase, but not. I'm pretty close to what he says. He's basically like, Canada gets a lot of free stuff from the United States, and basically Canada wouldn't be Canada without the United States. And Mark should remember that the next time he wants to make a comment. And so now everybody goes, ooh, right? Like now the commander in chief of the world's most powerful military is all pissed off at Canada and this, that, and the other. And what makes it worse is that everybody's basically like massaging Mark Carney. Like all these other global leaders are massaging Carney, and that's got to be pissing off Trump even more. Well, Canada's Prime Minister, away from Switzerland now, responds back to the comment that basically Canada lives because of the United States. That's what POTUS had to say about it, and here's what Mark Carney responded.
Canada and the United States.
It's got the inspiring music.
No, I've got the Citadel stuff in the back because we just ran it. Can you guys you won't hear this later. Here we go. In 3, 2.
Here we go.
Canada and the United States have built a remarkable partnership in the economy, in security, and in rich cultural exchange. But Canada doesn't live because of the United States. Canada thrives because we are Canadian.
So there you have Carney, keeping it classy, but a reminder that Canada lives because we are Canadian, right? He wasn't like, yeah, I said something the other day that I should clarify, and the United States really is integral to no. And I think that he's tapping into something that is probably, to a certain degree, it's how he's wired, right? That's his leadership style. That's his perspective on Canada. Part of that is probably one of the reasons why he was drawn to seek the Liberal leadership and serve as Prime Minister. And part of it is probably also, I'm not going to say that his comments or his mindset is dictated by polling. We just spent the first half of the show talking about it. But I guarantee he understands that that's the perspective that Canadians want represented right now. We're not a bunch of simps. We're not a bunch of wimps. There's a limited number of Canadians.
No, it's true.
There's a limited number of Canadians that do want us to join the United States, that do want to become the 51st state, that are acting in traitorous fashion to the flag that they flew just a couple of years ago. And Mark Carney is saying, hell no.
I even said the other day, and I probably shouldn't say it, but remember when I said to you, I'm like, I wouldn't be opposed to us getting closer with the Americans, maybe even, loosening the border. And I was like, maybe in a perfect world in 200, 300 years, it is like North America, and it's no longer Canada and the States. But the problem is the way it's happening. It's not being done by holding hands. It's not being done by furthering and deepening connections. It's being done by, bullying, right? Yeah. But I understand that Carney knows those people are out there. But also, I think a lot of people just are like, oh, it's bullshit. He's this. He's, World Economic Forum, conspiracy theories. Carney's not someone who came into this thinking, I want to stall or drag along Canada anymore. He wants results. No matter if he's out of here at the next election or not, he wants to be able to look back, you can tell, and see that he got some stuff done. And that's what he's trying to do. Yeah.
U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick.
Ooh.
Right? I mean, he's doing some heavy lifting for Donald Trump here. Obviously, any key figure in the Trump administration, the secretaries in particular, are obviously taking big swipes at Canada. I'm of the thinking that while it is significant and concerning, at the same time, it feels like a snapshot in time. Real talkers, I don't know where your heads are at on this. I almost feel like we're just like, okay, fine. We had a situation, John. I didn't think I would ever tell this story, but we had a situation in our building here in the historic Mercer Warehouse in downtown Edmonton, where someone, and we don't know who it is, and it's not their fault, and I shouldn't shame them, but someone took some time in the washroom. A while ago, it was a number two. They had a number two. They had some time to themselves. It's a metaphor. What I'm doing here is I'm bringing a metaphor to the table. And this person did what they needed to do. There was they did a number two in the toilet, and then guess what happened? There was some work being done on the plumbing in the building, so they had to turn the water off. Right. And so unfortunately for this person, I personally thought it was hilarious and it was not a big deal. But that meant that this anonymous person's number two, had to just sit there in the toilet. It couldn't be flushed. You couldn't flush the toilet because the plumbing wasn't working, right? And I remember seeing it and looking and snickering, and I tried to flush it when I went in there, and it wouldn't flush. And then I snickered, and then you know what I realized after a while?
Real talkers, it was Ryan. This is a whole masquerading around.
If it was my dump, I would just say, you guys, let me tell you the funniest thing. It actually wasn't my dump, But I realized at that time, after reaching out to building management and being assured that the plumbing would be restored in a few hours, that for a while we just had to let that shit sit there, and in due course and in due time, we'd be able to flush that toilet.
Dookie course.
And I'm looking at the Trump administration in that same fashion. Okay. And so
and it's like time is going so slow. Like I was like, how many years are left? 2? And you're like 3. And I'm like, Jesus.
3 minimum. And now we're just laughing again so we don't cry. But anyway, all of that to say, here's U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick on Mark Carney's Davos comments.
Canada has never expressed to the world that they have the best deal, the second best deal in the world. The best deal in the world is Mexico, because remember, they have USMCA, which means 85% of the Canadian economy comes into the United States For zero. And there he is complaining that he's going to go to China and improve it. What's he going to do? China's delighted to sell to him. But do you think China's going to open their economy to accept exports from Canada? This is the silliest thing I've ever seen. They have the second best deal because Mexico's got a little better deal. They have 25% on the extra 15%, whereas Canada's got 35% on the extra 15%.
Okay, so he's basically mocking Canada.
Yeah.
Like, what's Canada going to do? Right? These
he
are
also
the bullies on
bumped it
the
up.
playground. What are you going to do?
I think it's 75% of our exports go there. He bumped it up to 85, but I get what he's saying, and I know the fears of people. Like, no, we don't want a microscope on our tech from China, and we don't want their tech here affecting our national security and things like that. And there are huge... I mean, yesterday or a couple days ago, we got off the air and we were like, man, we were kind of like big upping China on the show, but we weren't. We
caught our, we had a reality
like,
check.
let's be honest.
We're not endorsing
state-controlled
China.
media and the things going on in China are not, how the modern civilized world should act and be. But then again, when I could walk around this studio and I could go into any one of your homes and point to a corner of the room, and there's something built, made, manufactured, put together in China. I mean, you can't not deal with them. This is what every expert is saying. So, but I kind of knew the Americans were going to use this as a slight because, I mean, it's like Supriya says, we went in tandem with them against the EVs. Carney's just trying to boost the economy any way he can, and holding China's hand on one or two areas, I don't think is selling out to them. Giving them some canola and taking some cars that people may buy, I don't think is a total sellout move. It's something you just have to do.
Well, and also, like, just to state the obvious, like when you're put in a position, Alberta has been in this position for several decades, and I don't want to say has done nothing about it because it's not accurate. The need to diversify an economy. Alberta's oil and gas sector remains very strong, and Alberta sits on a wealth of natural resources. And as far as I'm concerned, it makes perfect sense to do everything you can to extract as many of those resources in responsible fashion as
Our
you can.
premier
while
wants
there's
to sell
still
oil
demand.
to China, yeah.
But that also, does not mean that Alberta should not pursue other opportunities in alternative or renewable energy, in AI, in commerce, in banking, in all of the other sectors that Alberta can do really well. Research. We celebrate Alberta Wins every Thursday presented by Play Alberta, and these are the exact type of stories we focus on. Diversifying the economy, a smart premier, a smart finance minister, a smart government, smart citizens, entrepreneurs will seek for opportunities to diversify trade partners, export markets, import opportunities, security of your energy, etc. And the country needs to do the exact same thing. And when we've been talking this over the last year or so about Canada diversifying its economy, number one, if Carney sat on his hands and did nothing, just assuming or hoping or praying that the relationship would get better with the United States, very few people would see that as a prudent move. Mm-hmm. And Carney's loudest critics would point out that he's not doing anything about it. He's sitting on his hands. So what does he do? He goes to one of the biggest economies in the world, and not an insignificant existing trade partner with Canada in China, and looks to open up some doors there and create some opportunities there. And what does it do? It's going to ruffle a few feathers, obviously. What's that saying? To make an omelet, you got to break a few eggs. What did people expect Carney to do in diversifying the economy? Like, stay out of China, stay out of India, stay away from the EU? Like, what did people expect?
Yeah, but it's such a dichotomy because we already know China is the second largest buyer or fastest growing buyer of Canadian oil already. So it's like you're fighting one thing and pushing the other thing. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, our most important trading partner is the United States, without a doubt, which is why this is such a crisis. Or let me say why this is such a challenge. But you get into a situation. You're doing business with somebody, and all of a sudden they move the goalposts, and the game has changed. And what are you going to do about it?
And it's not I don't think you think Carney's sitting in a room being like, "How can we piss off Trump?" That's
of course not.
That's not what the move is, right?
And also, Trump's a little bit like a WWE wrestler. Like, a lot of it is performative, right?
There's not much you can do.
A lot of this is a show.
Some things you do, and he gets pissed off. You're like, I can't even believe he got pissed off about that. Like, you can't
Well, because he's touchy and petty and sensitive. And JJ Needs a Nap is in our live chat, powered by Park Power, your friendly local utilities provider. JJ says PM Carney is an economist. He sees what's happening globally in a trade and a rule of law, hegemony-wise. He's doing his job as Prime Minister. He's working for the Canada that we have now to ensure that Canada has a bigger future. Now, not everybody was joining the chorus out of the United States. Secretary Letnick and, of course, Donald Trump as well. Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, potentially the Democratic nominee for president next time around. We'll see. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Okay, so you pulled a clip.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
I pulled one yesterday, and I forgot to tell it where he sounds very presidential, so we could play that later.
Okay, well, why don't we get to both of them? We'll get to the one I pulled first, just because I think it's of interest. Here's California's governor. Obviously, probably, I mean, is he? I don't know if he's Donald Trump's loudest critic, but he's one of his more prominent critics, and he could represent the biggest threat, to the Republicans. Could represent the biggest threat to the Republicans next time Americans vote. Here's the governor of California.
I had more leaders from the United States quietly, not publicly, not enough standing up publicly, the transcript of that speech saying, wow. They were, got in Trump's head yesterday. He brought it up. You know everything about Trump because it's what's not in the teleprompter. It tells you everything you need to know about where Trump's head is on things. It was incredibly effective. The markets were more effective. Markets. It's not Mother Nature. Thought of most powerful force on earth with Mother Nature, but it's the markets, particularly the Trump administration. Combine that with the comments of Macron, combine that with the EU commissioner, but the clarity that came from Prime Minister of Canada. But the fact that he went to China, came back with a deal, started introducing low-cost, high-quality electric vehicles, not made in Michigan, Detroit, but overseas into Canada. It says everything you know about the recklessness of America's foreign policy. Everything you need to know. You know it intimately, but it's a remarkable thing to break down 80-plus years of alliances. It takes decades and decades to build trust in organizations, the architecture of that. It takes weeks, tweets, hours, minutes sometimes to destroy it. Destruction is not strength. The Trump administration is weakness masquerading as strength.
I mean,
weeks, tweets, hours, minutes. I thought he said that really well.
I mean, outside of, we have no idea what kind of policy or platform Gavin would get up there and do as president, and we're way off from another election in the States, but how good would him and Carney get along? I mean, it'd be ridiculous.
It'd be
Trudeau 1985.
It'd be Trudeau Obama. Trudeau Obama 2.0. Those two guys loved each other.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know that any, it's not necessary that presidents and prime ministers are super keen and love each other. Like Ronald Reagan and Brian Mulroney had this special thing going, but it does help, and I don't know that anyone, I will say this, I don't know that I would want our country being led by anybody that could get along famously with Donald Trump based on the way that Donald Trump behaves, right? We all have that one friend that's friends with someone else, and that someone else, we're like, that person is not of my taste. I'm not sure I can stomach being with that person. And you're probably thinking of someone in your own life where you're like, how can you be friends with that person? I don't know that there would be anyone, any prime minister that would be able to, who was it? I think it was Corey Hogan. Was it Zane Velji? Who was it on our show a while ago that was talking about, trying to ride two horses at the same time, standing on two horses, one foot on each horse, trying to ride two horses at the same time. How could you possibly, with Donald Trump's performance and perspective on Canada, how could you possibly, create a positive and friendly and warm and welcoming and wonderful relationship and at the same time stand up for Canada? I don't think it's possible.
That's why I'm so worried. That's why it feels like the days, the minutes, the hours, the years are passing so slowly right now, because it's all damage control, right?
Yeah.
But hey, it could be like Mulroney and Reagan with
oh, Danny Boy.
Remember how much
they were
liked
singing
each
at the
other?
piano? And it was great. Although I'm not sure that it's interesting. I saw a clip the other day. I didn't pull it, but somebody had talked about how John Turner may be the most vindicated federal political leader in Canadian history. He was very critical of Brian Mulroney in talking about, let me see if I can find it actually, but he very critical when Brian Mulroney was talking about free trade with the United States. And John Turner basically spoke out and talked about the potential consequence down the line for Canadians. And it was pretty interesting stuff. I'll see if I can track it down. Sure. What was the other Gavin Newsom clip?
Well, he had some words, and I just thought this part of his entire sit down, which obviously, like, you know, the world leaders talking was the big show. But when he sat down, I just thought this piece sounded like, I mean, how can this guy not run? So here's a piece of Gavin sitting at the WEF.
These guys are going to try to take me down, not just my state. I'm not naive about what I've said this morning and how that will be reflected in the official White House account. I'm not naive about the fact that he threatened to prosecute the Fed chief in the United States of America, who's literally going after his enemies with the FBI and the DOJ and these power ministries. I'm not naive about any of this. I'm not naive about the corruption and the graft at a scale we've never seen in American history. I'm not naive about folks writing billion-dollar checks to Witkoff, to Jared Kushner for this new peace deal they're announcing today. I'm not naive about the fact that the President of the United States made $1.5 billion+ in the last 12 months, personally. How the hell are we putting up with this?
I mean, that's like after a UFC fighter wins a match and then they call out the next guy, like, I want the belts. Like, that sounds like a guy who's going for the nom for sure.
Yeah. I will take just a very quick break here to just check in on our live chat and let you know, Chelsea the Ginge very much appreciated the number 2 plumbing analogy.
I was hoping we were back.
Don't worry. We're going to refocus. But you know, I still feel the freedom of this job, you guys. I would never be using poop analogies on terrestrial radio, let alone, and certainly not on morning TV. So every once in a while, you got to kind of like lean into your freedom and enjoy it a little bit. It was Dwayne or Lauren, one of our sort of purveyors of dad jokes. We have a few in the live chat every single morning that said something like, just imagine life as a toilet. They couldn't imagine life as a toilet. Imagine all the crap you have to put up with. Very well played. And good advice. Good advice. I warned you. And then good advice from Peter's Chance, who says, guys, always keep your bathtub full. Peter's Chance reminding you that if you ever do lose the ability to flush your toilet, you can sort of dump a bunch more water in there and it'll flush on its own. So there you have it. But I still stand by the analogy. Here's the clip. What would this be? Would this have been the 84 federal election off the top of my head? I'm not sure. This 84 maybe? I can fact check that. John Turner, this shared by journalist Harrison Faulkner. John Turner correctly warned Canadians. Here he is debating. So he's the federal Liberal leader at the time, obviously, debating PC leader Brian Mulroney. Says Harrison Faulkner, John Turner correctly warned Canadians about the consequences of free trade with the United States. His concerns were rejected by Canadian voters at the time, and his political career never recovered. Harrison says Turner might be the most vindicated Canadian prime minister of all time. I mean, okay, anyway, not PM, but anyway, here we go. Here's John Turner back in the day.
Once a country yields its energy.
We have not done it.
Once a country yields its agriculture.
Wrong
Once
again.
a country opens itself up to a subsidy war with the United States
Wrong
on
again.
terms of definition, then the political ability of this country to sustain the influence of the United States to remain as an independent nation, that is lost forever, and that's the issue of this election.
Mr. Turner, I today, sir, as a Canadian, believe genuinely in what I am doing. I believe it is right for Canada. I believe that in my own modest way, I am nation building because I believe this benefits Canada and I love Canada.
We built a country, east and west and north. We built it on an infrastructure that deliberately resisted the continental pressure of the United States. For 120 years, we've done it. With one signature of a pen, you've reversed that, thrown us into the north-south influence of the United States, and will reduce us, I'm sure, to a colony of the United States, because when the economic levers go, the political independence is sure to follow.
There you go. When the economic levers fall, the political independence is sure to go. That was John Turner in 1984 debating Brian Mulroney.
Yeah, and then I guess I'll equate that back to Newsom, because I see we've got people in the chat saying, Gavin Newsom, California. People always, whenever you talk about a mayor, a governor, anything of New York or California, they always say they're shitholes, but they're just the economic engines of the country. And like, You can say what you want about crime.
California's economy is a top 10 global economy.
It is like
globally.
It is the engine. And, under Newsom, you can look at stats. I mean, still, GDP grew from like 2.9 trillion to 3.7 trillion with a T. $1 trillion. That's insane. So, yeah, but is it hard to keep the largest state, the largest city, LA, all these places under wraps with drug addiction and houselessness and crime? Of course it is. But you could install anyone and say the same thing. So you can argue what you want against Gavin Newsom, but there have been incredible economic feats while he's been there. And I know that's not everything, because I'm someone who argues against that. Like, money isn't everything. Money isn't happiness. I get it. Like, if everyone's rich, there's still going to be things that make your quality of life bad. But, I mean, the things that people say against Gavin are not necessarily things that are in his control.
Yeah, and you will see. I mean, and like, number one, just to state the obvious, won't spend too much time on this. Yeah, there are obviously in states with populations, massive populations that exceed exceed most countries. There's going to be some issues. Like, no shit, there's some issues in Los Angeles or certain parts of California. San Francisco's had its issues. Many cities they're huge, major global issues, and many cities, including the city we live in, and many cities in Canada are also. I mean, look at Vancouver, look at many different cities. Mm-hmm. When you start talking about the opioid crisis too, let's not forget that you see like unhoused population on the street, or you see evidence of people using drugs. That doesn't mean that it's just limited to urban centers. It doesn't mean that it's just limited to like NDP cities or blue states or what have you. But
also,
like, are you telling me
how do you fight those corporations?
Well, and are you telling me that like, red states, are we saying that like Mississippi and Louisiana and Arkansas and Kentucky and Alabama are they killing it?
They pale
like
in
California's a shithole, but like everybody's like lining up to move to Mississippi. No offense, Mississippi.
They pale in comparison to the amount of money that they generate from blue states. I mean, New York and California and all these other places. But I mean, I'm not some Gavin, I'm not some simp for Gavin either. But I think it's funny when people say, well, California's a shithole. Well, since Gavin's been there, 3 million jobs added, largest budget surplus in U.S. history. Median household income went up. I could go down the list of things that are pluses that kind of, I mean, they don't erode all the problems that happen, but it's just, I feel like you install anyone there, and it's there's certain things about running a place like California that you're screwed.
Yeah. Metamodern is wondering, I mean, as the metaphor continues to resonate, obviously it was a wonderful metaphor. It was the best metaphor. Everybody loves my metaphors, Johnny. They're calling me daddy. They love my metaphors. Metamodern wonders how often the plumber at the White House is called. Given how many full diapers Trump tries to flush down the toilet. All right, the show's getting off track. Metamodern, come on, that's not a very rude.
From what I hear,
I love that comment.
We're getting off track here, but Trump's a very private guy.
It's Friday.
Like, in terms of like how he lives at the White House, I've heard, and who knows if it's true or not, but through the grapevine about, and I've seen articles and stories and tweets about how, like even when he became in the White House the first round, we were like, okay, we're finally going to figure out like how he tans, nobody still knows. He applies this stuff himself. Like, I figured he had like a tan specialist, someone who like sprays him down or whatever, but like we still don't know much about like the private life of Donald Trump. He keeps pretty like, I don't know how he does it, if he uninstalled all the cameras and just has these rooms where he does all his business, but
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Imagine him doing his hair.
Like, we still don't know.
It'd be wild to watch
the product he uses. Like, no one's found a can or a pitcher or
I don't understand the orange stuff. I don't. Anyway,
that's why I want to understand.
This is just turning into a.
Is it a cream?
But you know what? Like, he's pissing us off. He's pissing off the nicest, coolest country in the world. And sorry, we're going to take a few swipes along the way. Interesting comment, by the way, from Ken here, who says, "I've never seen Scott Moe so on board as over the last week." Says that's really something to see. Ken, I know you were here for it. We talked about that a couple of episodes ago.
With caveats, every time he says something, he says he makes sure to show he's not simping for
totally.
Carney, yeah.
But the difference between, like, it's interesting. Like the Alberta government signs this MOU with Ottawa. Danielle Smith and Mark Carney sit down and sign this thing. And then 72, 96 hours later kind of thing-ish, it's already back to like Ottawa abuses us, Ottawa's disrespected Alberta, Ottawa this, Ottawa that. While there's still optimism around maybe a new pipeline, maybe, it was right back to kind of that typical script, that same script. Whereas Scott Moe it's interesting to see like Alberta and Saskatchewan, which typically, it's kind of like, and I don't mean any offense. I actually love Saskatchewan. We go out there at Thanksgiving. I love spending time.
Sure.
Saskatchewan's full, it's a wonderful province.
People are incredible.
But like, it's kind of like the Alberta-Saskatchewan relationships a little bit. I don't mean offense. I know some of you will find it offensive, but it's a little bit like older brother, younger brother. Mm-hmm. That's kind of it a little bit, right? And we're both going to like fight against the carbon tax, and we're both going to do this, and we're both going to send almost exclusively conservative MPs to Ottawa, and we're both going to, and that's fine. That's great. That's fine. There are some interesting differences. Saskatchewan's kind of bounced back and forth, not as recently, but with more NDP governments than Alberta has. Alberta's had just the one, obviously. Saskatchewan has more kind of publicly owned utilities, public auto insurance, SaskTel, like interesting kind of models there that Alberta has not necessarily adopted, or Alberta has moved away from, I should say, more accurately. But I do think that Ken's onto something. It's an interesting dichotomy right now to see how the two premiers are communicating around the relationship with Ottawa. You disagree?
No. I just think in terms of Scott Moe, I think why not? Like, it's not simping for the Prime Minister. It's just I think we're all tired. We're all exhausted of fighting amongst each other. I think it's great that and say what you want. I'm not simping for Scott Moe. I'm using the word simp too much, but
we are using it a lot.
Say what you want about Scott Moe and his policies and his personal life and all those things, but let's start working together. And it's great that I know what Scott Moe wants. He wants life better for the people he represents. And if that means going along to get along, I mean, Ford did the same thing when him and Carney were sitting in the coffee shop, and everyone was like, so mad about it in Ontario.
Yeah.
What do you expect? Let's make the country better.
Of course. I mean, people light their hair on fire, like some of the guests that we have on this show. We want to talk to people that are wired differently. By the way, coming up in our Tuesday episode, I'll give you guys a heads up on this. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Actually, I always love tangoing with this guy. He trolls our show a lot, and I know he does it out of love. But on the 27th, that'll be the Tuesday, the 27th of January, Blaise Bomer's going to join us. Dr. Andrew Boozery will join us first out of Toronto. That'll be live at 8:30 Mountain, 10:30 Eastern, talking about Dunn House, which an interesting model out of Ontario, how they're dealing with the unhoused population. It's not totally dissimilar to the Bridge Healing Program we talked to you about with the Royal Alex. So Dr. Andrew Boozery out of the gates on Tuesday, the 27th. And then Blaise Bomer. Blaise was senior comms and strategy in Jason Kenney's office when Kenney was the premier of Alberta. Blaise is, quite frankly, one of the guys that got me fired from terrestrial radio. We went for beers after the fact, and I quite enjoy his perspective. But he reached out to the show. He let us know that this recall legislation that we're seeing, we talked to Marg Tokar earlier this week. Marg is the founder of Alberta Alberta Resistance, and they're assisting people with these recall petitions. Blaise starts cracking on it with our social media posts promoting that interview. Blaise starts saying, well, this is undemocratic. My response, generally speaking, I say, Blaise, it's not undemocratic. It's actually democratic. I said, the government that you worked for introduced this. He goes, yeah, I know I was there. And he goes, and it was a terrible idea from the start. So I reached out to him and I said, hey, are you willing to go on the record and talk about this? He says, I would love to. So we'll get a perspective coming up on Tuesday the 27th from inside Premier Kenney's office, and we'll get a sense, I think, on, did he push back at the time? Did he know he claims at the time he knew it was going to be a terrible idea. All of this to say, we're going to have right-wingers on the show. We're going to have left-wingers on the show. You're going to hear different perspectives. Obviously, you want to have your premiers meeting with the Prime Minister regardless. Obviously, you want to have people getting shit done, as they say.
Of course. I know you're gonna talk a bit about our sponsors, and then you're gonna start screaming with the flamethrower.
I'm gonna start screaming with the flamethrower, but I want to get to the Trump NATO clip.
I was just gonna say.
Yeah. I don't want to go without the Trump NATO clip, because I just think, and again, it's the response to the NATO clip, to the NATO comment that the President of the United States made most of you I know have probably already heard this, but let's just get to it. Obviously, Trump says NATO is nothing without the United States, and he kind of doubled down on that just a number of hours ago. Here he is.
I think, but I've always said, will they be there if we ever needed them? And that's really the ultimate test, and I'm not sure of that. I know that we would have been there, or we would be there, but will they be there? And let's hope that that never happens. We've never needed them. We have never really asked anything of them. You know, they'll say they sent some troops to Afghanistan or this or that, and they did. They stayed a little back, a little off the front lines. But we've been very good to Europe and to many other countries. And, you know, now under my administration, that began because we had a very successful first term. That began then, but it has to be a two-way street.
I mean, just before you say anything, how can any Canadian, like Adler iterated the other day on the show, literally insulting Canadian veterans?
Not just Canadians, man. So let's put this graphic.
Who went to war for his country.
Let's put this graphic up. So these are the nations that have done nothing. You have the graphic, yeah, that have done nothing for the United States, according to the president. These are the nations that have not been there when the United States needed them. These are military fatalities in American-led operations since 9/11. The source of these, and I'll read it for our podcast listeners, our YouTube viewers, those of you viewing us on X or Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, courtesy of California Closets, you can see it yourself. The source is NATO mission casualty records. That's the source in Afghanistan, including Afghanistan and post 9/11 operations. 636 soldiers out of the UK, 636 have lost their lives in American-led operations since 2001. More than 160 Canadian soldiers, more than 160, paid the ultimate sacrifice, made the ultimate sacrifice on American-led operations since 9/11. 90 French soldiers, 86 Italian soldiers. These are all NATO members. 74 Polish soldiers, 62 Germans, 50 Danes. They got to be especially pissed off right now about this too. 50 Danes, 46 soldiers out of Spain, 27 Dutch soldiers, 15 out of Czechia, 11 out of Estonia, and 10 out of Norway. So that's doing nothing for the United States. And I wanted to share this as well. Spencer Fernando. Spencer's got kind of an interesting thing going on. We're going to get him on the show. I don't know if he would appreciate this comparison, but you know how Charles Adler went from like Canada's most listened to right-wing talk show host to a bit of a lefty, right? Like Adler's a progressive.
Totally.
He's probably a bit of a lefty, to be honest with you.
I remember listening to Adler on the radio and being like, I don't like a lot of this. And then now
it's a total about fate. Like, it's a very interesting evolution with Adler.
100%.
I'm not necessarily comparing Spencer Fernando to that. Spencer has long been a conservative commentator in Canada. And I would say now it's not like he's like leaning hard left, but he's definitely speaking out against Donald Trump quite regularly. And it's been very interesting to watch. You can find him on X at Spencer Fernando. His post just the other day with Trump's despicable comments, this was yesterday, despicable comments on NATO soldiers in Afghanistan. Being pro-Trump as a Canadian now also means being against the brave men and women who serve our nation. 158 Canadians lost their lives in Afghanistan, and Trump's remarks show total contempt for them. And I thought that Spencer threw a bullseye with that.
It's wild. And on the same day, what are Republicans doing here, Ryan, in this photo?
This is wild. The reason why I wanted to share this for our podcast listeners, you'll know the name Michael Deatter. Michael is up until he was actually unceremoniously fired a short time ago, Michael has been probably Canada's most well-known editorial cartoonist. Mm-hmm. And so this is why you can follow him at Deatter, Deadder. And he's an interesting guy to watch. He actually has a Substack now, so he's kind of doing what we're doing, but with editorial cartoons. So it's kind of interesting. He's working for himself now. But Deatter's one of the most skilled editorial cartoonists on planet Earth. And he posted a real photo. This is not an editorial cartoon. He posted a real photo of Republicans cutting a cake shaped like Greenland with the stars and stripes on it. And he says, and I thought this was brilliant, this is why editorial cartooning is harder in 2026. He says Republicans don't just inspire cartoons anymore, they star in them. He says this picture, who Republicans ran to participate in, everybody wanted to be in the picture, with Republicans taking selfies of themselves cutting a cake shaped like Greenland, is the best editorial cartoon of the week. But it's a real photo.
You wonder why so many people are young and old taking pharmaceuticals these days. It's like we're in the upside down. Like with AI and everything going on in the States and around the world, it's so hard. Like reality and like an absolute dream world is blending together. I mean, we hear things every day, Ryan, where we're like, is that true? Like we have to check 30 times.
Yeah.
Even though, even 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we'd be like, that is absolutely not true. We're not even going to chase the rabbit down the hole.
Uh-huh.
And now it's an alternate reality. Cutting a cake that looks like Greenland. And I mean,
with the stars and stripes
if you're
on
listening right now, there's an American flag on it, and there is like 30 people around laughing, taking photos, posting it on their social media, staffers, different senators. I can't even believe it. It's wild.
Neola is watching us live on X, and we appreciate that, Neola. She says, Jespo, your show far surpasses terrestrial radio. We appreciate that, and that wouldn't be possible without our audience. Like, you guys are, I know I profess my love to you. I try to profess my love to this audience at least once a week. We appreciate it. Denis points out, he says, California is like the fourth largest economy in the world, due in part to Gavin Newsom as well.
Mm-hmm. And people like to say, well, people are fleeing You know what? There's the same amount of people leaving red state. People seem to be going and being on their own. Like people are leaving Texas. People are leaving. You see comedians going there, but like if you look at the numbers, I mean, and Gavin, I'll give him props. He's great at when people say people are fleeing California. He'll name like 3 red states where they've lost.
Oh yeah,
the same amount. In respect to population that they have.
I think California is doing just fine.
California. Again, Ryan, 2.9 to 3.7 trillion GDP. Yeah. Trillion.
Gilles, referencing the John Turner, Brian Mulroney debate, says, wow, a political debate without people speaking over top of the other. And Gilles, I'm sure, I don't know if you guys like me at 2:30 in the morning when you should be sleeping and you're scrolling instead. Number one, let's just all put our phones down. But if you don't, you've probably come across these videos where they take a look at some of these past political debates and these like fierce political opponents. You know who's like more and more likable over time is Ross Perot. I'm serious, man. If you look at how Ross Perot conducted himself in debates as an independent, just as this filthy, stinking rich guy.
Dude, he was a pop culture reference for that time.
He was Dana Carvey on Saturday Night Live for years.
In the middle.
But if you look at how politicians in like the 70s, and not all of them, but like I would include even the 1960s. Like you can even find, I mean, there's several examples of like, Nixon's like sweating from the forehead. There are these like kind of iconic debate moments, but if you look at them, like the general theme or kind of the general spirit of the debate is like really a lot of like kind of mutual respect for one another. And they'll say like, there's been American debates through the years where the candidates will say, I'm paraphrasing, obviously kind of combining a bunch of different ones, but the idea was like, we both love our country, or everybody here on the stage loves our country. We just believe in different ways on how it should be run. That was kind of the spirit of it. And now it's like, I mean, if you want to talk about the United States and where debate's at and some of the things that Donald Trump has said, I mean, probably the greatest debate moment of all time is the most embarrassing debate moment of all time, but I still love it. I don't love it because it shows that the world is to a certain degree going to hell in a handbasket. But Donald Trump and Joe Biden arguing over whose golf handicap is better and who would beat each other on the golf course and whether or not Joe Biden could even carry his bag or whether Trump could even carry. I mean, that was
I'll
like
tell you right now, my handicap
can I find it? Like that was literally like
that was the point.
That was a real presidential debate.
And
people need to be reminded of that.
I shed a tear for Biden during that exchange because I was like, "What is happening?" I'll tell you, I'm doing pretty good on the golf course. Actually, I'd take you down. And Trump's like, "Nah, you wouldn't. Nah, you wouldn't."
Like it's incredible. I mean, we do have it here, but I don't know. I'll just I mean, it's.
You gotta find
Should we play it?
It's so good. It's.
I just don't know if I'm going to find like a. Yeah, I mean, here it is.
The right part?
Okay, so I think we have it here. Let's just make sure we can play it.
That is absolutely it. Go.
Yeah. All right, here it is.
Took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams. every year. And, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced him. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one. And one of them said they've never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden?
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's
like what?
Anyway,
it's
just take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf with you if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie that he's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I have, how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Okay, let's
not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to turn.
Okay, so anyway, there it is.
Like,
it's like
you're watching it and you're like, somebody please just get him a nap and a warm milk or something. And then he's like, I tell you right now, I could swim an 8-minute mile. I can do the backstroke.
I've seen his. That's
in high school, I was first place in high jump. And
it also is mind-blowing. It was mind-blowing at the time. I know some of you, this show was being accused of ageism when we were being very critical about Joe Biden.
It's not ageism.
Guys, a year removed, actually 2 years removed-ish, that is wild that guy was the Democratic. That is wild. Number one, that guy was the sitting president of the United States, and it is absolutely wild that he was at that time running for a second term. That is absolutely wild, looking back on his. Both of them are ridiculous. That whole exchange is ridiculous, but I don't mean any disrespect to Joe Biden and his many, many years of service. And I know everybody right now, he's sick and he's fighting and all that stuff. And more power to him, much love to his family. But that is that is embarrassing.
Yeah, it's
the whole thing. I won 2 club championships, says Trump. And to do that, you've got to be very smart. Or own the clubs.
Look,
that also probably helps.
I don't even want to say this because I know we're going to get into comments about ageism and our real talkers.
Dude, we're gonna call a spade a spade.
I think there should be a limit, like 65. Like after 65, it is just facts that mentally things start to slow down. It's like when you look at a hockey player and you're like, we saw Sidney Crosby on the ice last night. He was great, but is he as fast as he was in his rookie year?
Didn't
of course
matter.
not.
He scored 3 minutes
and,
in.
And it physically and mentally, cognitively, yes, there are people who stay sharp to 90 years old. I get it. But you cannot tell me that on average, a 35, 45, 55-year-old compared to a 75-year-old cognitively, it's just, there's a difference.
MetaModern says neither of those geriatrics should have been there at all. M8 says this is why there needs to be an age limit on leaders. RS says, this is amazing, says it's like watching Grumpy Old Men 3.
It was totally.
I'm going to watch Grumpy Old Men again. And Margaret. What? And Bustion, thank you for your YouTube channel membership. And Bustion says, what an unserious country. Tracy says it was definitely not smart to have Biden so ill on television, but that's his work ethic over the past 50 years. And I get it. I get it. We can take a second to talk about conversations families have had on taking the keys away from grandpa. Yeah. And people are joking about that, saying with Donald Trump, it's time to take the keys away from grandpa. But at the same time, in all seriousness, that's really hard for elderly people that have been fiercely and proudly independent, and having the keys taken away is a big deal. They want to believe, or they do believe, that they can still function. They can still do it. They don't need help, right? Matthew Yeg, Matthew YEG in our chat says, 2 geriatrics born before the microwave oven was invented are arguing about golf scores in a debate to run a nuclear superpower. Nice.
I know it doesn't look good, but there are a few countries with age limit on leaders. And you don't want to read the list because One of them's Iran. It's 75.
Yeah.
There's a limit.
For now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although the president in Iran probably isn't someone, the
Ayatollah.
He's not the guy with the power. But
Aaron in our chat says Shane Gillis, the comedian, referenced the debates in the first term, like Trump's comments. Paul Rand is ugly. Ted Cruz, your wife is a dog. You have a dog wife, Ted. Aaron says it's not funny, but it is. Like, it changed the world of respectful politics. Aaron's absolutely right. It 100% did. Curtis, with a hot take in the chat, says you should lose your voting rights over the age of 65. Oh, can you imagine? I would never support that, by the way, for the record. Curtis, send us an email. Explain why, or articulate it. We'll read it in the Flamethrower next week. talk@RyanJesperson.com. Noob says, thanks for your channel membership, Noob. Says, we did have some pretty sad pissing contests in the House of Commons with Pierre Poilievre and Justin Trudeau as well. Those two guys obviously loathe each other. I'm not sure if you guys, did you see Ezra Levant accost Justin Trudeau walking with Katy Perry in Davos? Did you see that interview that Ezra did?
I did see that, but I'm too obsessed with the TikTok of him doing a speech on diversity and how he tried to literally ram more women and people of color into every piece of his team. And he looks over and winks at her, and she winks back. She's in the crowd winking back at him. It's the whole thing is a reality show. I think it should just Justin, come on. People would watch. Let's just do JT back on the scene reality show. Katy Perry as a housewife. I watch it. Let's
Hanging
go.
out with Obama. You could have celebrity cameos. It would be kind of like Curb Your Enthusiasm in a way.
She's going to space next week. He's going to talk at some summit.
Totally. And then have little celebrity cameos that drop in, and Drake would drop in for something. Ken says, what's wild is the standard that many found unacceptable for Joe Biden doesn't somehow apply to Donald Trump, who is clearly on the same path. Dwayne says he does agree about there being an age limit on politicians. There's an age limit on senators. That's relevant. There's a mandatory retirement. Leslie says there should definitely be an age limit on who can run. MA, are you agreeing with Curtis? Says not 65, but maybe 75, 80. Guys, you can't, really? Are people serious? Take the vote away from people based on aging out? What? Are people serious?
I don't know about vote. I'm talking about a president who...
No, I know what you're talking about, but people in the chat are saying you should lose your voting rights.
No, come on.
I think that's... are you going to tell someone... I know that not everybody did this, but are you going to tell somebody that, was in a foxhole on Juno Beach or something? Do you know what I mean? You're going to tell someone that served their country, or somebody that built a business, or that has paid into public services for decades and paid hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in taxes? I just think that's I think that's insane.
No.
I don't mean to be dismissive. That's very disrespectful. I don't think anyone would do it.
We're not talking about voters. Till the day you die, you can get a vote, unless you're in a mental institution or something. You know what I mean? But we're talking about an acting president who, we know the amount of sleep you get. We know the incredible stress that the job puts on you. We know how many decisions you have to make in a day, how many meetings you have to take, how much information you have to absorb like a sponge. And once you're at a certain age, how can you not argue that a 55-year-old could do it better than a 20-year difference? Come on.
I want to clarify, M-Aiken, I didn't mean to drag you into that. She says I was not commenting when she said maybe 75, 80. She said I was not commenting on taking the vote away. So there you go. Shout out for Noob throwing $2 into our super chat. Says the Pond Hockey Classic is almost here. He says I can't wait.
Noob's got his drone ready.
Noob's got his drone. He's going to be there. Just an absolute legend. Goose is going to be there. We've got volunteers showing up. We're super excited to connect with all you guys. And
Dairy
I wanted
Queen
to take
is
a second.
Stacking burger patties right now.
DQ is ready for the burgers. Our friends at Molson are the title sponsors this year, doing an amazing job. They're going to have all the cold ones there for you, served by our friends at Central Social Hall. Now I've started mentioning sponsors. I can't stop. Our friends at Apex Automation are leveling up. We've not had this at any Pond Hockey Classic before. And guys, just a reminder, you can go to the events link at RyanJesperson.com, click on Pond Hockey for details. I'm thrilled to tell you the Pond Hockey Classic is now sold out. Thank you to everybody that's registered a team. But our friends at Apex Automation are bringing some sort of a trailer. These smokers, these grills. They're bringing a trailer and serving brisket off the trailer. So feel free to bring.
This is new.
Yeah. It's super. We've never had one at a Pond Hockey Classic before, so I'm excited about that. But you can bring the kids by. It's going to be the 31st of January. That's a Saturday, so like a week from now, at Larry Alexiak Field in St. Albert. It typically goes from 9 till about 4. And swing on by, bring the kids. It's a lot of fun. Bring your skates if you want to hang out. We have a beer garden you can skate around. There's bonfires going. It's a lot of fun. And the forecast, I don't want to jinx us.
How'd you know I was doing that?
Well, it's like -9 because I've been watching it every day. It's looking like -9, which is just a wonderful sweet spot.
-10, 12 would be perfect.
Yeah.
But like -9 is like you got your thermals on, you got your jersey on, you got a toque on. It's going to be paradise.
Yeah. I love it. It's going to be a great time. Anyway, by the way, Super Chat Ken says, hey, guys, Marty Short, a great Canadian, is 75, says he couldn't be sharper. Age is relative to the person. Says, remember, many people aren't available to politics until they can afford to be, unless we want them all to be self-serving. Interesting comment there. Joe Blow makes a great comment, says, if you call it the Facebook, then you're definitely too old to vote. And Joe, I 100% agree with you.
I mean, we're almost getting to the point if you're on the Facebook. Because, like,
screw off.
I mean,
I feel attacked.
I mean, I'm on the Facebook, but if you have one of these Chinese spy phones, you can see what apps you use the most. And out of social media, Facebook for me is always at the bottom.
What's you got to be Instagram number one?
Instagram, yeah.
What's your number two?
Anything, I mean, this really hit me the other day. We're in a video world. We're in a 60-second reel kind of world. I mean, do you even go on Instagram to look at photos anymore? I mean, maybe if someone has a kid or like something huge, but
depends whose account.
You're just hitting that reel thing, and within 10 minutes, you've got pop culture, news, world events, sports given to you. I mean, you're up to date, right? So for me, it's Instagram, TikTok. Go down the line. Yeah, probably the bottom will be Twitter and Facebook now.
Yeah. Tracy's correct. Says some roles, some jobs more stressful than others require a sharp mind or razor sharp reaction times, of course. Yeah, this is an interesting comment. Ytrium says William Shatner is 95. Is William Shatner 95? What? No. Can you Google William Shatner? Is he really 95? Anyway, Ytrium says he's looking and acting like he's 60. Says it's wild. I'm going to just get personal for a second, guys. I don't try to make everything all about me. You know, William Shatner blocked me on X.
Oh, my God.
And this is so funny. I didn't do anything. Like, he's William Shatner. What am I going to do? He's, like, amazing. Who doesn't love William Shatner? He's hilarious. And when I was working for Chorus, you know that company, guys, if you're looking for a deal, you can get Chorus stock now for, like, 3 cents. Don't buy Chorus stock. I'm joking. But we got this, like, host wide, there was this like group email that go out and go to all the talk show hosts across the country. So that'd be like me, Danielle, Supriya, Charles, like on this big long list. And it was like do not engage. And I was like, what's this all about? And I opened it up and it was like, you may have noticed. And I mean, I'm sort of, I don't remember the exact wording, but it was basically like, you may have noticed Canadian icon William Shatner is like calling out chorus hosts and blocking people on social media and dragging some of them through the mud. And whatever it was, Shatner was pissed at Chorus for something and had like gone out of his way. Like, was it actually William Shatner or maybe someone that worked for him? I don't know, but had like gone out of his way and was like either just making disparaging remarks and kind of like starting shit with talk show hosts or just going on this mass block. And so I'm like, well, I'm like, Jespo and Edmonton, like what I did, what I look, I'm blocked by William Shatner. I was like, I feel like he's one of the great of the Canadian entertainers, of the Canadian pop culture icons. I'm not comparing him to like, you know, but of the entertainment stars, of the people everybody knows about, William Shatner's on a pretty esteemed list.
Sure,
he's on a pretty short list.
Sure,
in a good way, and
he's survived
every time,
cancel culture.
Every time I see his name now, and I know you didn't mean to, White. It's a little screwdriver stab between the ribs.
Be careful, he might stab you. His face was the mold for Michael Myers' mask. You know
what?
The movie. Yeah.
Come on, is that true?
Yeah. So in the original movie, they didn't have a large budget, so they found a William Shatner mask, stripped the paint off, and that's Michael Myers. It always has been William Shatner's face.
Oh my God! Oh no! Oh. I got excited. that William Shatner unblocked me, and then I realized it's because we're on the Real Talk account. Let me see. Sorry, guys. We're going to get to the flamethrower in just a second here. This was not intended to be something that we would do on the show, but why not have a little fun with this, right?
We're on this planet. There seems to be a large amount of media.
Share my screen.
Talking trash about us.
Oh, I guess. Okay.
It's a bad Shatner impression.
It was not bad. Okay. Anyway, blocked by William Shatner. Little known fact. Hey, guys, did you happen to catch Carrie Williams on our most recent episode of the show? Carrie joined us from North Road Investment Council.
Great. Very insightful.
Wasn't it good?
Yeah.
Talking about how you would define a rich life.
I love it because this is the thing. Like, people think, investment and it's only for the rich. He was saying you gotta believe you have a rich life by fulfilling it with these other things. And I like how he said, like,
his priorities.
The 4 or 5 things that we can all put into our life. Talk to your spouse, talk to your kids. What do you want?
Invest in
and
your
then
health.
he said in the ways, he just kind of dialed back. He's like, we live in the smallest house on the block.
Yeah.
I
drive
a
a years-old car,
20-year-old car. I like that because I do as well. And because of that, we travel more, we invest more, we donate more to charity. It was a great show.
Yeah, so I wanted to invite Real Talkers. Really solid. Dr. Paul Parks out of the gates, and then Carrie joins us from North Road Investment Council. But I wanted to put it out to you just as feedback, and I thought it would be an interesting follow-up conversation next week to send us an email on what he called it the rich life equation. What's your rich life equation? You can check out the highlight on our YouTube channel, aptly named What's Your Rich Life Equation. Either leave a comment there or send us an email to talk@ryanjesperson.com. It's kind of a cool way to check in on priorities. Yeah. And just a reminder, Carrie or Marshall join us once a month from North Road Investment Council, just to make sure that we're focused on the right things. And who knows, you could do your family or your business well by connecting with them, a steady hand, studied voice to guide you through wealth and investing. You can check them out online at northroadic.com.
And I liked how he also talked about, one thing I think we got to do is like get people educated on debt and credit score
so
a lot
true,
younger.
though.
Like, I mean, I know we're about to go to the flamethrower, but we got to talk about this Trump 50-year mortgage. Basically, slavery is what it is. It's just like
50 or more. I mean,
how
there's two takes on it, right?
You're trying to enslave young people. How do you get a 50-year mortgage? You'd have to buy a house at 20, and then what? You're never out of debt.
Well, you're
stuck in the same place your whole life.
It drops your payments down. I mean, you're not stuck in the same place, but it drops your payments down. But the amount of interest you pay would be astounding.
You're not winning out of that. The lender is winning.
You're 100% correct. But you are, listen. I'm not justifying 50-year mortgage. I think it's a very bad idea. 30-year mortgages are not
slavery disguised as freedom.
But yes. But well, I mean, that's an interesting way to put it. But it's also gosh, this would be a good debate for a future show.
We're at
2 hours
but
now.
The States is
but
knee-deep in
it's like it opens the door. You're right, Johnny, about the debt 100%, but
horrible.
It does open the door. It makes home ownership attainable for people. But a 50-year mortgage is like a crazy.
It's ridiculous.
The amount, if you looked at the amount of interest you'd pay over the.
It's insane.
You buy like 3 houses.
Like how long are you upside down in that? And then. We should just talk about the states in general. I mean, I had no idea, but some of these lenders, like just for payday loans or whatever, 600% annual interest on some of these crazy places in the ghetto, in places where impoverished people are, on corners of the street. DoorDash in the state now, and states now letting you split up your payments, like literally, like pay, over 4 or 8 or 10 or 12 equal payment for food. Like, it's just,
well, and that's
you're
you're
enticing people to be in debt.
These are like
who are
those
young for the
payday
rest
loans
of their lives.
people, right?
Like
the payday loans people that, and Bushton says, that's a terrible idea. I love this from Norm. Norm's 100% right. Says financial freedom comes when the mortgage is paid. Aaron says lenders are always more than happy to make that money, finding new ways every day. MA says in some European countries, mortgages are passed on through generations. Alberta Girl says Japan has 100-year mortgages. They've had them for over 25 years. Generational mortgages to keep property in the family because real estate is so expensive.
Yeah. The idea of a mortgage to me, and the reason I say this is slavery disguised as freedom, it's like you pay it off and eventually you have a place where you're not paying a big amount of money in terms of rent or mortgage. Eventually you just buy your groceries and pay your bills, and it's a load off.
Yeah.
A 50-year, when are you going to enjoy it? When you're 80? That's the average lifespan of a male in North America
it would probably
right now.
be,
You're dead.
Yeah. MetaModern says just with the lack of affordability of houses is really not related to the mortgage term. Guys, number one, you're not wrong. Number two, never listen to me for financial advice. I've been very clear about that. And number three, all I'm saying is just that the payments would be a little bit more attainable, right? Like we know we renewed our mortgage, I think it was last year, and like you can look at like a 20-year term, 25, 30, right? And that's all I'm saying. But you're right about the affordability.
You bump up a lease from 6 years to 9. Of course, but you also know you're underwater for some of it. You're paying a crap load of interest, and I mean that's not good for anyone except predatory lenders.
Yeah. Jillian says there's a reason why the 2008 crash hit the U.S. harder than Canada. Noob says the numbers on a 50-year mortgage are predatory, just like payday loans. He says I would rather rent over a 50-year mortgage. Super Chat Ken says we already have 100-year mortgages, guys. We call it rent. Let us know what you think about this. I love the engagement. Johnny and I would hang out with you guys all weekend, but unfortunately, our families and friends and loved ones kind of want us to show up for them as well. And I got to free myself up for Chamber Ball Saturday night. That's the 24th, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing a lot of you there. It's Edmonton's premier business black tie event at the Edmonton Convention Center. I'm thrilled to be returning as host, and I'm looking forward to seeing a bunch of you there. I know I'm going to run into our buddy Cam at Chamber Ball. Cam is, of course, the driving force behind California Closets of Canada.
Cam.
We love Cali Cam, and we love our California Closets, too. Our California Closets adventure, let me tell you about this, started like 10 years ago, and I'm going to be honest with you guys. My wife and I, still to this day, but most especially at that point, we didn't have like a ton of dough to spend, but we knew that we had to get organized. We knew that we wanted to invest in our home in areas that we would enjoy every single day, and that includes Carrie's walk-in closet. They worked wonders for me. With my limited space. We're in a 100-year-old home. Closets aren't huge, but California Closets has just maximized the efficiency of it, and we love them. They're guaranteed for life. We have the confidence there. I'll tell you right now, no shit, guys. 8 years after they were installed, they still look as good as day one. That's why I get really enthusiastic talking about California Closets. The consultation, you got nothing to lose. It's free. Go talk to one of their designers, price out your project. They can work with any budget. You can do that today at californiaclosets.ca. Same deal with our friends at Solar by Kubi. I know a lot of people are going, I'm not sure if I can afford solar. Like, there's that upfront cost, and it feels kind of prohibitive for a lot of families. Well, the team at Kubi is helping answer these questions every single day, and you got nothing to lose reaching out for a free solar quote. They are the busiest and cleanest solar installer in Western Canada. Look at, just the proficiency there. That's because this is a company that's built by electricians and engineers. It's not a company built by salespeople. No offense, salespeople, but the team at Kubi, they've been turning wrenches, and they've been working. This is a company that started two guys in a pickup truck leaving their Fort McMurray oil field jobs because they saw green energy on the horizon and they saw a huge opportunity. This is a wonderful Alberta success story. You can get in touch with the team at Kubi today. They're experts at navigating the government incentives, the pricing. They can help you figure it all out. We recommend you visit kubi.ca. That's Kuby.ca. I want to shout out our friends at Play Alberta. Very, very generous last night in rolling out the red carpet for a few of us real talkers. Of course, dude, nobody was happy at the Oilers game last night. Down 3 goals on 3 shots 3 minutes in, but we were still having a lot of fun with our friends at Play Alberta.
Play Alberta boys party.
And Albertans are, of course, winning every single day at playalberta.ca and on the Play Alberta app. You know that a winner in Sturgeon County just scored $100,000 on Cash Machine. There's literally hundreds of popular casino games to choose from, and of course, some jackpots worth millions, and all of the revenue stays right here in Alberta with a major casino winner every hour. You can download the Play Alberta app today. Get started with casino, sports, and lottery all in one app. You got to be 18 or over to play. And when you do gamble, please use your game sense. Don't forget, if you send us an Alberta win, tell us about an Albertan that inspired you in an email to talk@ryanjesperson.com. Have Alberta wins in the subject line. You'll automatically be qualified to join us in the Play Alberta suite on the 21st of March as the Oilers host the Tampa Bay Lightning. And we want to shout out our friends at Athabasca University. Before we get to the Flamethrower here, I want to remind you that AU is the answer for those of you that have been dreaming of of, or even just intending to, you're being intentional in 2026, you will pursue a post-secondary path. You've been thinking about it for a long time, but there's a lot of reasons why you haven't, and nobody blames you. You don't live anywhere near a big university, or you're looking after your parents, or you're looking after your kids, or you're looking after both, or you're working a full-time job, or 2 jobs. Well, AU is Canada's open university with world-class accredited degrees and courses designed so you can complete your education whenever and wherever it works for you. 92% of AU alumni say they're in a job related to their field of study. 94% of them say they're satisfied with the quality of their education. 94%. Learn more about the AU Advantage today by visiting athabascau.ca.
And 100% of them love the cafeteria food.
Did you ever go to a school that had I felt almost robbed.
What, you didn't
as
have
a
a
kid.
Cafeteria?
Well, I had a cafeteria
We all did.
like
Come
in
on,
university.
high school.
The high school caf was, it was okay. I have bad memories of that cafeteria. I was bullied in that cafeteria once. I have bad memories of it.
Oh, I love
But
those
elementary school, I remember like those movies, like the kids' movies were always like the cafeteria worker would like have a smoldering cigarette, would like throwing slop on the tray.
It's mystery meat again,
John. Yeah, it was always like, exactly, mystery meat. Yeah, I never had that experience in elementary. I always felt robbed.
You'll eat our slop and you'll like it.
I love it. Thank you to Goramut, who says, Happy Friday, Real Talkers. Remember to like and share the best show in Alberta, Canada.
World.
Goramut, thank you very much. I also wanted to shout out Michael Scott earlier in the show. Michael, I made a note of this. Michael said, gosh, it's a real shame that we can't share photos in the Real Talk live chat. Michael, just a reminder, the Real Talk community chat on Discord, people are sharing links and photos and videos all the time. I drop into the Discord whenever I can. The conversation's like, I don't want to say 24 hours a day, but it's almost 24 hours a day. The live chat, imagine a live chat that just never stopped. That's the Real Talk community chat. You can gain access to that with our YouTube channel memberships and, of course, by supporting us on Patreon. Check out the Connect link at ryanjesperson.com.
Thanks, Prison Mike.
Prison Mike?
Michael Scott. My Office fans will get that.
Okay. Is that the, I'm Prison Mike? Okay, anyway. I think I saw something like that on the Facebook. Anyway, every week as we wrap, courtesy of our incredible friends at the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park, that's Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, and Baseline Road. We give you a chance to just blow off a little steam, bring us your hottest takes. It's the Flamethrower, presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. How about this one from Michael? Michael, out of the gates, we should know by now. No kids. No offense, kids, but no kids. Or at least earmuffs, kids, or what have you. Parents, use your discretion. I'm going to read it word for word from Michael. Ryan, he says, I'll set my own disclaimer. So earmuffs, kids. That from Michael. Fuck ICE. Fuck Steve Bannon. Fuck dementia, Donnie. Michael says, I love my country, I love my province, and I love my home city of Edmonton. Keep your dirty fucking hands off what I fucking love. Michael, I've never sworn so much in a show that my parents are going to listen to, but I hope you feel better, brother. I hope that cathartic exercise worked, and I hope that I delivered it with the enthusiasm that you expected.
Smoking.
How about this one from Brendon, who says, Jespo, I had something sort of concrete that I wanted to add to your discussion on entertaining Alberta separation. I've always been against it. He says, like everybody knows, the Bank of Montreal left Montreal, for Pete's sake. He says, recently my wife's been looking to expand her business and get into a new building with more room. I found the perfect space, and we spent the last 2 months, including over Christmas, getting the deal across the finish line. The building needed some renos, but as she was signing a 10-year lease, the renos would be covered by the company that owns the building. TIs, tenant improvements. He says, cut to this week. After $7,000 in legal fees for contracts, months of back and forth, she was told that it was all good and some final approvals needed to happen, and then she got the dreaded call. The board of the company had met in Toronto, and they explicitly cited the current uncertainty of the political climate in Alberta as the reason they've decided that they will not invest any money into buildings of Alberta urban centers, as they believe it's currently riskier than letting the building sit empty. Guys, listen to what Brendon just said. Think about that for a second. He says this is a 10-year lease. He says we're talking about he says closer to $1 million in renovations, and a business is deciding not to take the risk in Alberta right now because of the chaos that separatists are causing. He says this is just one story. This from Brendon. He says this is just the start of a trend. And because these decisions are usually made in private, we're not even going to really truly see the hit that our economy is going to take until it's too late. He says no movies will be shot here in Alberta. Corporate headquarters will move. Entrepreneurs will have a harder time securing capital. All so some lunatics can blow off some steam over like a 50-year beef with Ottawa. He says, get over it. There's rational discussions to be had over equalization formulas or whatever other grievances we may have. But this is not how that gets done. He says, fuck your bumper stickers, fuck your referendum, and fuck this stupid movement. That from Brendon. You're being played by the Americans, and it's working. And unfortunately, he says, you're taking the rest of us down with you. That from Brendon. Unbelievable email. Gerald says, Jespo, the teacher, the leaked audio, the story you shared on the teacher parodying conservative stereotypes. Gerald says, I'm torn on this one, to be honest with you. I think that the story definitely proves the conservatives who are wetting themselves over this are proving that when they do make those snowflakes comments about the left, they really should be looking in the mirror. He says, but where I'm torn is that if a clip was posted demonstrating a teacher speaking their mind on like trans issues and they didn't line up with the progressive view, would you guys all be just as committed to seeking the context around it? Gerald says, now I know it's a bit of a flawed comparison because the second example would likely be talking directly about a specific student or students in that school. But my point is, a lot of people seem to get more worked up if right-wing topics are supported in a class, and I say that as a very strong leftist. He said, but Danielle Smith, Johnny was right on this one, he says retweeting a right-wing account like that is particularly wild. That from Gerald, a great email as well. And Watty writes in, and I love this idea, Watty, but I'm going to tell you right now before I read it, you'd be disqualified for public service in Alberta before you even got started. Why, everyone says? Because Watty thinks it's time for Alberta to adopt a provincial sales tax. He says, here's my big idea for the province. Am I nuts? Or could you maybe sell this as a way to get us out of this rut? Watty says a 3% PST would bring an estimated $4.5 billion a year into the province. We're currently $85 billion in debt, with repayments costing us $3.2 billion a year. Debt repayment is one of our top 5 expenses as a province. If we introduced a 3% PST, but somehow made it a law that maybe like every penny goes to debt repayment, theoretically we could be out of debt in like 18 years. Then that $3.2 billion a year we're currently paying in interest would be open to spending on healthcare and schools and whatever else. He says, I acknowledge this is a very simple calculation. I know nobody wants more taxes, but as the lowest taxed province in the country, I feel like this PST could be sold to people if it was intended exclusively to pay off our debt and then have more available capital for other things. And then once the debt's paid off, we could use the PST to build up our Heritage Trust Fund. And as the trust fund grows, we could use the interest to build even more schools and hospitals. Your thoughts? Watty, I've been calling for Alberta to consider a PST for years, and I would roll it out if I was premier, along with a flat income tax to sell it to people a little easier. Now, I know that there's flaws in that plan, or at least valid critiques, and I love debating that kind of stuff. Why don't we put it out to Real Talkers? Based on Watty's proposal, what do you think about the idea? He put some numbers out there. He's got a plan. Send us your email to talk@ryanjesperson.com, and I would love to get into this as early as next week. Guys, the Flamethrower is presented every single week by our incredible friends at the DQs in Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, Baseline Road. They're going to be out there slinging burgers at the Real Talk Pond Hockey Classic. They're incredible supporters of everything we do, and we appreciate you supporting them. Make it a great weekend. Maybe I'll see you at Chamber Ball. If not, I'll see you with Supriya on Monday morning. Peace.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson. Executive producer Josh Dunford. Technical producer John Hicks. General manager Katie Cook-Chivers. Account coordinator Lawrence Derlego. Human resources Lena Shepard. Website design Mike Johnston. Voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton.